Hello everyone, welcome in, welcome in. Let me just tell you what songs we listened to. So that was Teflon and My First Trance Attempt in Hydro Courtship by the man, the myth, the legend, Ray Kofoot. And that sound you just heard was my heating unit as I kind of nudged it with my arm. That's not that much of a banger, but the other three are, so I hope you like them. And let me take you on over to this other scene that I have here. It should be this. Ah, yes, it's working. Wonderful. So hello again. It's been a little while. It's been a little while, actually, but I didn't mean for it to be. So I've somewhat alluded to this fact with the notification message. Oh, someone's offering a promotion. Well, I'm very, very happy for you, but how about no? Thank you. I appreciate the offer, but we don't do that here. But yeah, so I've been gone a little while, and as it turns out, I was very, very addicted to Monster Energy drink. Away with you, bot, indeed. Welcome in, Ren. Hope you're doing okay. Hello. But yeah, so I decided to quit drinking energy drinks every single day, because it's really unhealthy for you. And I've been meaning to do it for a long time, but as it turns out, you know, the consequences of your actions catch up with you. So I was going to stream last Thursday, and then I literally just fell asleep on my couch. But I didn't, you know, I was reasonable. I didn't make any, like a notification. I didn't tweet about it or anything, because I figured it would probably happen eventually. So as a consequence, you know, it didn't take me, you know, I wasn't blindsided by it, let's just put it that way. But we're back now, and we're going to do the longest news show that I've ever done, because there's a week's worth of news, and there's been a lot of stuff. So let's just get into it. There's apparently one of these articles about the blood type points that I didn't get to actually read last time, and I'm a little disappointed. But we're here now anyway, so let's get into it. So this is about the new World Leaders, who, by the way, you can actually... Is it pre-order, or is it just, like, available now? I'm pretty sure you can, like, pre-order the stuff now. Maybe this weekend, I can't remember. Yeah, you can actually pre-order all this stuff as of last Saturday, in case you were wondering. But yeah, obviously they do the drip feed about the rules. So for example, they're going to have a mechanic that's very similar to Corn players the world over, because it's Blood Tithe. Big difference is they're going to call it BTP, so it's just, you know, like not Blood Tithe point, but it's BTP. There's a cool conversion over here, by the way. Let me see if we can punch in on that. It's the Lord Executioner over here, but with a head swap. I appreciate it. It's neat. Allow me to just not be the zoomed in version anymore. But yeah, so they're going to be doing Blood Tithe with this army as well. But it's basically a better version of the previous mechanic. So let me give you a little bit of history about the Blood Tithe mechanic. Essentially, so Blood Tithe, in case you're not aware, you essentially get resource if a unit on the battlefield dies. It doesn't matter if it's a friendly unit, it doesn't matter if it's an enemy unit, it can be any unit. As long as they die, you get a point. Now, when this was first introduced, this was introduced with the Khorne Demonkin book back in Warhammer 40k, I want to say near the end of 7th edition still. And you had a cap of 8, and you could spend it essentially on summoning, but in addition to summoning, you could also spend it on persistent passive abilities that usually lasted the entire length of the game. And for example, for 8 points, you could get a Bloodthirster, and that was like the big one because Bloodthirsters were not that good. Like in terms of when you spend your points on them, people weren't bringing them a lot at the time, but they had like a pretty good stat line. But if you get one for free, that's a different matter entirely. So it was a pretty big payout. Now, there's a couple downsides to that, obviously, and this was less of a problem in Warhammer 40k 7th edition because the army compositions were a little bit different. But essentially, Khorne Demonkin stopped existing after 7th edition, so they were not ported over to 8th edition in any way, shape, or form. I feel like World Eaters are now the spiritual successor, but in between that, we got Khorne Bloodbound in Age of Sigmar, and Khorne Bloodbound and later Blades of Khorne actually got the same rule, which works in the exact same way, basically, where you collect Blood Tithe points with a cap of up to 8, and pretty much what happens is you can use these points to buy new units throughout the game and summon them. You do need heroes to be able to do it, or the terrain feature now with Blades of Khorne, or you can also just cash them in for various passive abilities or kind of like different events. You can do like a Rain of Blood that heals your own units, stuff like that. Now, there's a couple of problems with this, and this is very noticeable now in Age of Sigmar, and I am willing to bet with you that the current iteration of this mechanic that is like outlined in this article is going to be very similar to what we get with the new Blades of Khorne book when it does happen for AOS. Because the problem with this, and I'll go into the issue first before looking at the solution that they basically found, the rules writers that is, the big problem is it pushes you in a certain playstyle. So because you are given a point, and also in AOS you have a cap of 8, you can't have more than 8 points ever. So the big problem here is it pushes you in a certain playstyle, because you cannot control what your opponent is bringing. You just simply can't. You can only control what your army is composed of, which incidentally means that if you want to reap the most benefits and be able to generate Blood Tithe points, you essentially have to play MSU. You have to bring multiple small units. Now, this is kind of a tough one in AOS because the big point sync units are generally pretty good in AOS. Like, they do really well for themselves. They receive buffs incredibly well due to the way activations and close combat work. They're just better at close combat, generally speaking. You can block out objectives more. Terrain is less of a problem. It just goes on. Essentially, in AOS, if you can bring a big fat unit to something, it's usually better than multiple small units, especially if you have any kind of buffs that you can put on them. And basically, Blades of Khorne suffer from this a little bit because it forces your hand. You have to bring those minimum units even if you want it to reinforce. Because anytime you reinforce a unit, you gotta ask yourself, would I not be better off just bringing an identical unit to the one that I already bought instead of reinforcing it and generating a potential Blood Tithe point? And the answer usually is yes, it's better. Now, the issue, obviously, is that you have to bring the MSU, because you can play stuff like, Mega-gargants that I'm working on, and then you fucking have 6 enemy units, maybe 4. That's not a lot. 4 Blood Tithe points aren't going to get you like a pivotal game-changing ability. They're going to get you some summoning, and that's about it. So it's kind of rough. It's kind of rough in the jungle business. So the solution that they made for World Eaters in 40k is basically this. So Blood Tithe points are earned in a few ways. First, whenever a unit is completely wiped out, add 1 to the tally. Doesn't matter whose unit, whose turn, or what phase it is. So we already knew that this would work this way. You do get an extra point at the end of each phase if a vehicle, monster, or character died, and one more if a Titanic unit was eradicated. So pretty much, this is the answer to the problem that I was talking about. Because even in 40k, you have Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, other big point sync models, especially now with Arcs of Omen being the season that is currently in play. You can kind of do any kind of army construction. You just need an HQ, 3 identical, not identical units, but 3 units from the same battlefield role, So you can build any kind of skew army. Now, obviously, I really like the skew armies, but it does mean that a Blood Tithe mechanic like this is kind of fucked, because if they go up against an army made up of 4 Imperial Knights, which is admittedly not a strong army currently, but that can change whenever, you can make a maximum of 4 points off of me with the old rules, you know, the Khorne Demonkin, Blades of Khorne rules. That would be dumb. That would not work. So the solution they came up with is if you're a vehicle, monster, or character, that's an extra point at the end of the phase. You will notice that it's not per. None of these are per. These are criteria that get you an extra point, but they don't give you an extra point per kill. So if you, like, completely wipe out the opponent's Lord of War army in 1 turn, that's really good, but you don't get as much of a reward for it as, like, kind of bleeding them out. Which might seem not so cornate, but this is a conversation I had with some of my friends over the weekend, where any kind of mechanic that prolongs the game and makes it so that there's a little bit more counterplay involved from both players, you can, you know, act and react, is inherently going to be more interesting. So that's why this exists. That's why it's basically, you know, either you did it, you tick the box, you get a point. Oh, you also killed a Titanic, or one of these was a Titanic. Cool, you also get, like, another point for that. I think this is a great rule. This is a fantastic rule. It's probably the best version of this rule that we've seen thus far. And I'm hoping that when Blades of Khorne get their update for AOS, that we'll actually see something like this, because this is actually really good. Now, you can also spend these things. So you got Rage-Fueled Invigoration. Until the end of the battle, add 1 to charge rolls made for World Eaters units from your army. So this is one of the persistent effects that we were talking about. Now keep in mind, this stuff is going to be pretty easy to cash in 40k. Like 3 Blood Tithe point with, like, 3 Blood Tithe points with the criteria we just talked about. Essentially, just, like, kill 2 units, make one of them a monster or character, and it can even just be one of yours. Yeah, just send in one of your dudes to die if they're not too expensive. That should be doable. And I mean, hey, even if they are very valuable, at least you're getting some reward if they die, right? That's different than other people. You also have Total Carnage. Until the end of the battle, each time a melee attack is made by a World Eater's model from your army, an unmodified hit roll of 6 automatically wounds the target. So you got Gene Rot Might, but on your whole army until the end of the battle. I mean, hey, this could be really, really good, obviously depending on the weapon, and it's going to be so much better against those skew lists that we talked about. So, interestingly enough, I mean, with the 6 points, it might be hard to get this in time, but against, like, a very, very heavy, high-toughness style army, which, this is just my bias, that's the kind of stuff I play. I don't think you generally see that kind of stuff at events, at, like, you know, your local game store. People tend to actually play armies, not just fucking army men like I do, like little action figures. But yeah, this could be quite good. This could actually help you quite a bit. You also have Spiteful Nullification. Until the end of the battle, each time a World Eater's model from your army would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll 1d6. On a 5, that wound is not lost. Now, this is fantastic. It's only against mortal wounds, but any kind of ignore damage ability is wonderful. The 2 cost is, again, really, really good. You can probably just bring some cultists, have them killed, and unlock this ability easily. And I mean, hey, it's going to help you a lot against various psychic abilities, which is good. It's going to help you against Necron, Mortal Wound spam. It's just going to help you against a lot of various effects. Also, Votane, I think, has a bunch of lasers and stuff, and Ion, that deals mortal wounds. This will help against that, too. So, pretty good ability, pretty good ability. I mean, all in all, this is looking quite nice. There was apparently a battle report with the new Angron and the new World Eaters. I have not watched it, didn't have the time yet, but they did spoil before that, you know, this guy could come back, like, any number of times. And, I mean, hey, you can see here, there's a couple things. So for 6 points, you can actually get Reborn in Blood. I'm trying to find the one little thing. Oh yeah, here it is. So you'll earn 2 the moment Angron dies, even if nothing happens, because Angron is a monster slash character, but also Titanic. So, oh, yeah, probably not Titanic, just monster character, yeah, because that would be 1 and 1. Yeah, okay, that makes sense, So he's not Titanic, because no Primarch actually is Titanic, now that I'm thinking about it. But either way, so you basically get, like, 2 points if he dies. So if you're on 4, you can immediately do Reborn in Blood, which is place a destroyed Angron model from your army into Blasphemous Reserves with 8 wounds remaining. That model is no longer considered to be destroyed and can be set up again in your reinforcement step as if it had the Warp Strike ability. So you get to come back with 8 wounds remaining. I mean, this is good. This is really strong. This is basically the answer to Angron's durability problem. He's not meant to be as durable as Mortarion. Like, Mortarion is supposed to maybe be able to last the game, or at least the operative part of the game, so until turn 2, 3. Or if he doesn't, then he takes all the shots for your army, and the rest of your force can hopefully make the plays happen. You can get those objectives, you can kill the opponent. when you really need to. So this is essentially the equivalent answer to that. It's a pretty interesting ability. I kind of like it. It means that the new Angron model is going to be on the table more. It's a cool model. Like, it's pretty nice looking. So this is pretty nice. I mean, all in all, this is one of the more interesting army rules that we've seen. And I mean, again, I gotta give, this picture over here looks fantastic. Like, whoever did the photography, like, look at that, like, underlighting there. That looks magnificent, actually. I'm sure there's some, like, Photoshop wizardry involved with that, but still, that's like, a really good image. This is a very, very atmospheric little shot. Even though you can see the odd base here and there. Like, it still works. It still works despite that. It still kind of pulls you in, captures you. So, good article, good mechanics, good pictures. What can you do? It's a pretty much a triple threat at this point. There's a rumor engine post. I mean, this is a Kroxigor weapon. We know Seraphon are coming. This literally just looks like the same style as the new Seraphon stuff. I don't... Can I pull that up real quick? Do we still have those Kroxigor? We probably still do, which is sad. Let's see. Yeah, it's this guy. Look at that. It's just this guy. Do we have a separate picture? It's this man. It's the same thing. Well, it's basically the spiritual successor to that. But like, look at that, and then look at this, and tell me that it's not like the same thing. It's the same thing. Cool. But there's gonna be a new Kroxigor. I'm hype. If that can be played as a standalone army, I might even go in. I might even go in on it, but doubtful. Seraphon are cool, but I'm just not that interested. There were some other spoilers for World Eaters. Again, makes sense because they went on pre-order this weekend, so obviously you want to drip feed as many rules as possible. They use the same picture setup from the Angron image, but it still works. I still love it. I guess I just like red. I don't know. But the Jackals are a unit that I didn't like initially, and I still don't know if I'm into them. But I mean, hey, this guy looks cool. He's got a name. He's a unit leader, but we'll have to read it in the article. I can't remember now. But essentially, the Jackals apparently have stim packs on their backs. And, you know, we can't have anything good in Warhammer. It has to be dumb, basically. So the way the Jackal stims work is, in addition to being a bunch of chemicals that the Berserker Surgeons, which are the apothecaries, essentially, or what's left of the apothecaries in the World Eaters Legion, well, the remnants of the World Eaters Legion, in addition to the chemicals and stims that they put in here, they also put in 8 drops of blood taken from a World Eater himself. This is stupid, but kind of metal, and I think this is the right kind of thing for Khorne. Like, it's dumb as all hell, but I mean, it's kind of endearing. The ability itself basically just says, you know, once per game you take D3 mortal wounds, and if you do, then you add +1 to strength. Not bad, could make a difference. I'm kind of disappointed, but also understandable that they didn't make it a flat +1 to wound, but I really wish they had, because there are entire armies in the form of Blood Angels that can just have that on the charge. It is a very, very strong effect, but at the same time, like, this is a dinky unit of cultist equivalents, right? Like, guardsman equivalents. They're not going to have good saves. They don't have amazing movement. I don't know, they're just armed with, like, various chain weapons. I don't feel it would have been too much. I mean, that's something that is very FAQ-able later on, so who knows? Who knows? Maybe it'll be fine. It's also mentioned here that basically, you know, like, the Jackals are supposed to be one of those units that the opponent cannot safely ignore. They're not that amazing, they don't put out that much damage, but if you leave them to their own devices, they're gonna just run through your lines, cause a bunch of trouble, and just, like, be a thorn in your side. So in that regard, basically, this unit is the ideal kind of thing for generating BTP, because either they get whatever job done that you wanted them to do, or they get killed and then they give you the resource. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, this is the guy, the guy, he's called a Dishonored. He's a big jackal, apparently, and he can have a special weapon called a Skull Smasher. I assume that's that thing over there, and interestingly enough, the Skull Smasher is made of unmatched skulls. I don't know how valid that is. I'm immediately doubting the efficacy of this weapon. But in terms of stats, basically you double attacks, strength user, AP -2, damage 2. I mean, look, it's a decent weapon. Like, it's probably like a slightly weaker power fist. It has worse AP and most likely lower strength. But at the end of the day, it's not bad. Damage 2 can be pretty good. At least you can kill Marines with it. For a simple mortal? Yeah. I guess because it's a chain weapon, technically, if you look at it, it's kind of like a flail. I'm guessing that's the idea there. A lot of the flail-type weapons have some kind of either overspilling damage or just, like, you know, increasing your number of attacks. I mean, it's good. is good. It remains to be seen. It's one of those things where this is an anti-infantry weapon through and through. Like, the damage 2 is not going to matter against anything actually valuable, because pretty much every fucking thing in the game has damage -1 anyway, so... But it's the thought that counts, right? Like, hey, it's damage 2. In theory, it can get the job done. Now, there was a Blood Bowl, like, Tactica article. Well, the players need some convincing rules to field a unit. That's kind of the case as well. I think they want to sell them. Although, I've already seen some critical opinions about World Eaters, and apparently people are really not liking the book. And I can kind of understand, because it just seems to be the Angron and 8-bound show. Like, it just seems like that's what they want you to do. Which is neither here nor there, but I guess we can get into that at a later point. So there was a tactic article for Blood Bowl. Now, Blood Bowl, especially 2nd Season Edition, is supposed to be a great game. I've not played it. I played first, Blood Bowl 2016, aka 1st Edition Blood Bowl of the recent editions, with a bunch of friends, and it's a lot of fun. The models are fantastic. Like, look at fucking... Is this, Bryce the Slice Cambuel? Such a fantastic model. But, yeah, I can't really say whether any of this holds up. I kind of imagine it does, but if you need Blood Bowl tactics, I think there are better sources out there. So, good effort, but I mean, hey, I guess for Baby's First Blood Bowl Tactica, it could be good. Jokey articles, we do tend to look at those as well. Obviously, GW currently is on the little friend arc. You gotta have fluffy friends in the boxed sets so people can meme about them on Twitter and Instagram and basically get noticed by Big Papa GW and get, like, 14 additional followers and pretend like they're relevant. And that's, supposed to be ironic with my attitude to streaming and whatnot. If I'd start a World Eater now, I would just buy the Patrol Box 2 times, get 6 Rhinos and Angron. Sounds fun and simple. I don't care about those rules, just make the Red Tide. Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, it doesn't look so bad, to be honest. It's kind of what I wanted to transition my World Eaters collection into, which I still don't know what I'm going to do with my own World Eaters, actually, because I got... Well, before the new book was announced and before any of it came out, I had about, like, 700 points ready to go, like, built, basically. It's like, the Terminators, big fat unit of Corn Berserkers, but the points included a lot of the war gear, for example. A couple Chaos Lords, a couple Exalted Champions, 2 Rhinos. Pretty simplistic force, good enough to start with for sure, but I never really did much with them. And even now with the rules drip feeding and me liking the rules, I don't really feel like a strong urge to jump into it, So I'll have to reevaluate that. I'm really, like, on a different vibe. I'm working on the Mega-gargants. I need to, like, do, like, a display board for an upcoming tournament. If I do get to go to that, I guess, again, that's more personal news, but we'll get into that as well. I mean, I have to make the display board anyway. Again, we'll get into it, But yeah, I mean, you can definitely start World Eaters. It's just, people have a critical opinion, and I don't think that's necessarily bad. I've not looked at all the rules. The army rules look decent. There is another article that we'll get to, which will kind of spoil, I think, what people are thinking about the book, and we'll get into it more. But yeah, I mean, this article is basically just, hey, we're gonna collect a bunch of dogs and make, like, funny stuff about them. And it's all good. It's all good. Like, someone had a bit of fun making this. It's okay. They put an actual war dog, like a war dog carnivore at the end. Kind of based. Kind of funny. I mean, I read it. It's the typical thing you would read at, like, I don't know, you're doing your job, you have, like, a break, you have 5 minutes, just pull up the phone, look at it, have, like, a little lighthearted chuckle. Sensible chuckle. Probably a little bit more interesting in terms of newsworthy goodness, I suppose, if we have to refer to it as such, would be that now they're going to give out so-called Golden Throne tickets to Warhammer Fest for Warhammer Plus subscribers. So in case you didn't know, Warhammer Plus is a thing that exists. Actually, it's a thing that exists. It's GW's own subscription service. In case you thought Netflix was bad, then here's Warhammer Netflix with even less content. But I'm joking. It's not all bad, but they certainly have to pull the bribes out to get the subscriber numbers up to any reasonable amount, because you get free models, you get a bunch of other benefits. I mean, they got me because I was like, hey, I might as well subscribe just to basically be like, yo, I got this thing. But I don't necessarily think it's a great service personally. But this is an interesting idea, because essentially what happens is 2 people are going to be randomly selected, and they will be given the so-called Golden Throne tickets, which will cover all 3 days of entry to Warhammer Fest. They will include 1,500 quids worth of merch, with a branded backpack to carry it in, a queue skip for entry into the hall itself, and a priority access for most of the events, and access to a VIP lounge and a cloakroom with free refreshments. So you get to live the high life, basically, if you get one of these. Now, there's no way to guarantee that you get this, by the way. Like, there's genuinely no fucking way to even get this. You can't really have more than one Warhammer Fest subscription. So this is like an incredible, like, thing that will get announced later, hopefully, like who the fuck won it. But, I mean, hey, it's pretty cool. I don't have any illusions about winning this. Like, I have a subscription, I didn't get one for this. I just wanted to have one so that if something cool comes out on Warhammer Plus, I can look at it. And I mean, it's good for that. If I do win it, it's going to be hilarious, but I very much doubt it. I do know one guy that won a Sisters of Battle raffle when the Plastic Sisters were coming out. He's like a local Hungarian player, so that was kind of cool. What were the odds of that, I guess? But yeah, that's sweet, that's sweet. I mean, look, Warhammer Plus is what it is at the end of the day. It's not bad, but I think if you want, depending on what kind of content you want for your wargaming needs, there's so many more better channels out there. Both on YouTube, there's stuff that's just about as condensed as the Warhammer battle reports, like the Warhammer Plus the battle reports. There's stuff that is basically like, you know, left to run a little bit more. I don't know. I think there's better content out there. I think eventually GW might make good content, but at the same time, I wouldn't hold my breath for it, simply because, as it turns out, they're in the business of making models and rules. They don't need to make the best YouTube videos. Other people can do it for them. There is a book coming out about Angron, Angron the Red Angel, written by David Geimer. There was a pretty nice interview with him. I actually read this when it came out, and I wanted to talk about it last week, but like I said, going to energy drink rehab in a way kind of put a little dent in that plan, so I wasn't able to show on Thursday. But it's pretty interesting. Like, apparently this is almost 3 books in one. Basically, Angron is more an event that happens in this book, which I think is a good way to handle the Primarch characters in 40k. They're so much larger than life that you can't really have them be a main character, so instead people react to them. Because the people that react to them are going to be, even though they're also transhuman, like ridiculously awesome warriors, at least they're a little bit more believable than like an actual demigod of battle, you know? So there's a little bit of talk about this here, and I mean, they reuse a bunch of the art that we've seen before for the article. You know, that's not a big complaint, it's whatever. But it's a pretty decent one. So we have basically the 3 characters here. One of them is a returning character, I believe. I've personally not heard of him, but apparently he is. Yeah, Koselax the Forsorn is one of them. So he's apparently the current Master of the Conqueror, which is Angron's ancient flagship. And he's basically the prime candidate to try to get the Legion back together. I wasn't aware. I genuinely just knew Karn, even though I wanted to start World Eaters. I didn't delve super deep into their lore. So this is a new name for me, but I'm sure that if I look it up, there's probably like some more stuff about him. There's 2 other characters who I think are a little bit more interesting. So you have Letus, who technically isn't a World Eater. It's just a renegade space marine who wants to become one. And part of the story that David Geimer explores here, apparently, is about why you would want to do that. And honestly, that's like the one part of this that makes me kind of curious to read the novel. Not that I'm not interested in Angron, because like, it's not to say that I hate the guy, like hate the character. I just think he's kind of a cardboard cutout for the most part. Again, he was more of a force of nature in the original Horus Heresy books than an actual character. He just happened, but he didn't really have like personality traits, which is okay, to be honest. But I'm very curious what kind of reasoning someone might have to want to essentially lobotomize themselves and become like just a killing machine, more so than they already are as a Space Marine. Like, I can see why you would become a Chaos Space Marine and get rid of those, you know, inhibitions that you might have, whatever is left of your humanity, like throw it away for additional power. I can kind of see the argument there, and that's been explored time and time again in Black Library and codex like blurbs and all sorts of lore, so I get it. But I'm curious why you would specifically become a World Eater. So, I don't know, I'm not saying I'm going to buy it and read it for that, but for me, this is the part that I would read it for sure. There's also Shaka, if I'm pronouncing this correctly. I kind of doubt that I am, but whatever. So he's just a crazed berserker, and he's supposed to be essentially like almost a little potential glimpse into the future of Elitis. Like, this is the person you could become if you're not careful. And again, I find that interesting. These two characters are definitely like quite intriguing. I would like to read about them. So maybe eventually I'll get it. I don't read that much these days, unfortunately. I just don't take the time for it. I used to be a very avid reader back in the day, but that stopped like many years ago when I just did like super long days, and I just didn't feel like getting that kind of entertainment in my downtime. And it's a shame, because reading is actually a lot of fun. Works your brain in a slightly different way than just watching stuff, for sure. So maybe I should get back into it. I mean, I did get a book as a present that I do want to read. It's an anthology of various Age of Sigmar stories, and I'm looking forward to getting into it, actually. But yeah, I could see myself digging into this for the story of Letus, especially. So maybe, if they do an ebook, I might, to be honest. Because I don't know if I want to have a physical book of any kind for this. It just takes up a lot of shelf space. Don't really know where I would put it. But if I could just get like an ebook, download it, put it on my phone, put it on like my Kindle, whatever, it's better. It takes up less space. There's less of an adoption impact, if you will. There was, again, a little tiny article, because it's been 40 years of Warhammer, about Grom the Paunch. So this is a Goblin special character. I know his actual lore, because I was still around when, Warhammer Fantasy was a thing, and also when this model was still being sold. But I'm not that old. It's just, they sold this model for a long time. So the thing about Grom is he's a goblin that apparently ate a piece of a troll, and he was never able to digest it, and it just constantly is regenerating in his belly. So he just has a piece of troll meat stuck in his like, belly, essentially, and it has made him the largest, most fearsome goblin that you've ever seen. He's actually almost the size of an orc. He wields like a massive fuck-off axe, as you can see. I believe it's called Elfbiter. And Grom was one of the weird ones. So the thing you gotta know about goblins back in Warhammer days is one of the universal rules for goblins was that they were scared of elves for some reason. Like, they thought they were weird and like unearthly, which they kind of are, but rather than being impressed with that, like humans, they were just scared of it. Like the unnatural beauty of it, I guess. So Grom was the only goblin in history who didn't have that, for some reason. I can't remember if something happened and he just doesn't care for elves. It's more likely that the troll meat just like messed with him, I suppose. But basically he was the only dude that wasn't scared of elves. And one of the big reasons you might bring him in your goblin army back in Warhammer Fantasy was that as long as he lived, your army did not have the fear elves rule. Because, like you're with Grom, he has an axe called Elfbiter. He literally eats elves for breakfast. I think that might have been his rule, in fact. So, like, yeah, like, this guy is not scared of the fucking pointy ears. Why would you be? So that's kind of fun. And I mean, hey, there's a little bit of a charm to this model. I kind of chuckled when I saw this article, and I saw the little reel that they made here for Instagram. Because I'm pretty sure Louise Sugden was the one that, like, made this and suggested this article. Because she's a notorious goblin enjoyer. So if that is the case, well done, Suggy, well done. I mean, we all knew you were great already, but you just continue to impress. So Godspeed, you magnificent bastard, as they say. So this is the article I've been meaning to get to for a long while. Like, I've been meaning to get to this one. There is essentially an army of renown in the new World Eaters book, which is important to mention. Because armies of renown, if they are in a codex publication, are basically valid forever. So we have, like a rotation in and out kind of style thing for a lot of 40k, essentially. But if anything is included in a codex, then unless they specifically FAQ it, I believe it's going to be valid forever. So this is important because this is potentially a playstyle that you can see until the end of the edition, which is admittedly like 5 more months, right? So you'll probably see it for 4 months in competitive if it's good. You might see it for 2 months before the end of the edition in casual, because it's going to take about that long for people to buy it, build it, and paint it. But neither, let's just look past that. Let's just ignore the timeline here. Let's just appreciate the fact that, so you can essentially run a World Eaters army that is all demons all the time. So, Disciples of the Red Angel are an alternative way to muster your World Eaters army, granting you awesome boons in return for exciting mortals like Berserkers and Jackals from the ranks. If it doesn't contain a fragment of Khorne's imperial power, it doesn't deserve to fight beside the Demon Primarch. Now, there's a little asterisk here, and I get why it's there. So what it's referring to is you can actually bring Land Raiders. You can bring World Eaters Land Raiders as well. And I get why this is here, because technically Land Raiders aren't demons. But at the same time, a lot of the Chaos Land Raiders have a demonic machine spirit. They have a demon, like they have a demon actually driving the thing most of the time. They're infested with demons. They might not even have a crew. They're just like kind of a haunted ship almost. So, I don't know, whoever wrote the article maybe forgot about that, but not a big deal. Like, really, it doesn't matter that much. I'm more just pointing it out. I'm trying to flex my knowledge, what little I have. So one of the benefits you get is your 8-bound and exalted 8-bound, which are the badass motherfuckers you see here. I believe these are the regular 8-bound, and that's an exalted 8-bound. They become objective secured, so that's not bad. That's pretty good, in fact. And obviously you can run them in the new Arcs of Omen detachment, so you don't need troops. And you can just basically run like a full skew army of these guys. And apparently one unit of Possessed from your World Eater's army also gets to pick a special demonic infusion. They revealed a couple of these. So you have Drawn to Power, which is each model in this unit counts as 2 models when determining control of an objective marker. Now they don't mention if these guys are objective secured themselves, so this isn't that strong compared to a lot of OPSEC stuff. If they do get OPSEC access, though, it could be interesting. You also got Brazen Skin. Each time a model in this unit would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound, roll 1d6, and a 4-up that wound is not lost. So it's just a 4-up shrug. It's a 4-up ignore damage, but only for mortal wounds. Pretty good. Pretty good. And I believe the Possessed now are also 3 wounds a pop, something ridiculous like that. So yeah, that's pretty nice. Now, obviously Angron has to be in the army. He has to be your warlord. And apparently you do get to bring demon engines, like Helldrakes, Defilers, and Forge Fiends. And Lords of Skulls. Again, it makes sense. They're demonic World Eater constructs. Like, it all ties into it. So you also get to wield 8 specific stratagems, and they revealed 2 of them. You got Terrifying Assault. Basically, after you charge, you get to do, well, during your charge, you either turn off Overwatch or set to defend on the enemy, or if you don't do that, then you basically force the enemy to have a -1 to hit. It's pretty good. It's pretty good for 1 CP. I could see like a lot of use for this. It can kind of completely mess with the enemy. Like, just the fact that you have access to this is going to have them, you know, rethink their battle plan. Because they're not going to be relying on Overwatch, for example, even with units, you know, stocked to the brim with flamers and shit. You also got Bloodsend. So this is pretty much... I find this one a little weird, but I get it. It's good for capturing objectives. It has a lot of tactical utility. It's just not as flashy, like conventionally. But anytime in your opponent's movement phase, when an enemy unit falls back from your keyworded 8-bound unit, so I believe this will include Exalted 8-bound as well, once the enemy has moved, you can basically actually move your own unit. You can consolidate, and you can consolidate up to 6 inches instead of up to 3 inches. So you can basically get into another enemy unit more than likely, because if the opponent knows that this is a thing, unless they want you to waste a CP, they're probably not going to let you consolidate into the same unit that is just like withdrawing from combat. But I could see some use for this. I could see some stuff to do with this, obviously. It's just not that flashy, but it's good. It's just a good ability. They also revealed one of the relics, the Skull of Angrand over here. And pretty much, you just need to see an opponent, like an opposing unit, selected in your command phase, and all melee attacks can reroll the wound roll against him. Now this is a very strong effect, obviously. I hate it, because I play units that cost a bunch of points, and this will turn the tables on me, but I get it. It's a good effect, though. And this isn't once per game. You get to do this every command phase. You get to designate a different target every time, so this will probably be like a fan favorite in the book, if I had to guess. I would say, like, I'm trying to think here. I guess the one complaint, it's not really a complaint, more like an observation. We saw the Gene Rot Might effect, the auto wound on 6s. Obviously, there's no synergy with this and that, but in order to get that effect, you gotta spend a lot of blood type points, so maybe it's okay at the end of the day. Again, it's just an observation, more like pointing it out. But yeah, so I think people were referring to this a little bit when they mentioned that new Codex World Eaters might just be Angron and these guys, the show, which could be a little disappointing if you're like Ren in the chat or like me who wanted to do just berserkers. And I mean, at the end of the day, let's be 100% honest, let's be real. Just like how like Ren phrased it, I don't care about those rules. If you don't care about being, you know, peak efficiency, you can just play what you have fun with. You can just have fun with the stuff that you want to include in your army, and that's okay. It's admirable, if nothing else. So I don't think Berserkers are bad. I don't think Berserkers are going to be bad, but if the 8-bound and Exalted 8-bound are just better, and they have access to better stratagems, they certainly have access to more stratagems, as we just saw, 8 of them in fact, then they might be, tactically speaking, the better choice. I think the problem we might see, if this is the case, is going to be the fact that this is an army of renown in a codex, and if running the Disciples of the Red Angel is the best way to run World Eaters, then that's going to be the only way you see them at events. And basically, people in the competitive scene will forget that there are Jackals, that there are Khorne Berserkers, because all they're going to see are just going to be endlessly resurrecting Engrons, and 8-bound and Exalted 8-bound with or without, probably without Land Raiders, let's be real, especially now that stuff can just come from reserve for free. So I'm just saying, like, for army representation, this is probably a bad thing, if this is as strong as people are saying it is. I don't know if it is. I've not seen any more rules than this. I'm not a playtester. I don't get sent stuff in advance. Other legal text goes here, whatever. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I wish the one thing GW would do when they come up with rules like this is consider the consequences that can happen. They might not necessarily happen, but at the end of the day, if something is the best way to run an army, in people's heads, it's going to become the way to run an army. And that can basically have like a perception issue, where people will then associate that particular army only with that particular playstyle, with that particular sub-faction, and think that it's the default. So that's like an internal balance problem. Again, I don't know if there is an internal balance problem, but I've heard some stuff, and maybe there is. And we kind of, again, I think Ren just is being a prophet tonight, because again, there's the little quote, well, the players need some convincing rules to feel the unit, and wouldn't you know it, Exalted 8-bound and 8-bound are models that did not exist before. So even if you have an existing Khorne Berserker-based army, like myself, like I have the start of it, you don't have 8-bound though, because they didn't exist before. You didn't have massive, overgrown, possessed, like, power-armored veterans, basically, with all close combat weapons. Because they didn't exist. You probably didn't have a reason to build something like that. And I mean, hey, this might be a cash grab by GW. It is what it is. Like, they're a business, I get it. I'm not gonna judge. You know, they're here to make their money. There's a really good article about different Angron paint jobs, and all of these look amazing. And I'll actually come out and say it. Most of these just straight up look better than the GW paint job. Like this one by Adam R, fantastic. I love those wings. I love the little, like, burgundy fading into the red. It's just, like, real good. Yeah, I was thinking about what the hell is that 8-bound, actually. Yeah, so the 8-bound are basically Khorne Berserkers with 8 demons, like 8 bloodletters in them, wearing power armor, running about in units of 3. And then you got the Exalted 8-bound, which I don't know what the difference is. There is an article coming up about them. I don't know if they delve into the fluff, but I guess we can check it out. But yeah, I really prefer this paint job to the GW one. I think I just really like that burgundy, though. And maybe the highlights on the face are a little less stark. And it's weird that I'm the one saying that that's better, because normally I'm the dude with the laser, like, giga highlights. How the turns have tabled, as they say. But yeah, you got another fine specimen from Caleb Wissenbach. Pretty nice here. I like it. I see some non-metallic metal. No burgundy on the wings. I won't hold it against him, but it's a pretty nice paint job. And I mean, that sword looks pretty fucking sick, let's be real. Chris Wildman has like an entire little burgeoning force here, basically. Again, I like the Sangron. The wings are a little different. I see some more like shadow gray, a little bit more dark, basically, on the membrane for sure, and around the membrane as well. Could just be like a, you know, fast shading thing, but it looks nice. Breaks up the monotony a little bit. And I kind of appreciate the fact that these ridges weren't super highlighted on like the outside part, because for me, this is like a very Tyranid style look. I'm not complaining, I'm just, you know, observing. But when they're not like fully grabbing your attention, it kind of just looks nice, you know? Looks a little bit different and evil. Drake Seta also committed Angron over here, and I mean, hey, it looks pretty good. I love that sword effect. Again, that's a pretty cool bit. His actual, you know, sword that has like a Keeper of Secrets in it. Everyone had fun with that. My personal favorite, but I am biased because I do watch him, is definitely Fletcher over here from Tabletop Tactics. Like, look at this. It's just so good. You got the classic World Eaters, like classic World Eaters inspired armor colors, basically, with the baby blue. And the skin is the white armor that you would normally have. Like, that's so clever to make like a pale Angron instead of a red Angron. You got some amazing OSL effects. Just look at that base detail, like so good. Just skulls and rib cages galore, a wrecked sentinel, a new one might I add from the looks of it. And again, those lovely fades on the wings. A lot of this is airbrush tech, but it's not the bad looking airbrush tech, you know? Like, this is an incredible rendition of Angron. It's personally my favorite from these, but again, I'm biased. We also have another gray and blue Angron, but this is almost like Thousand Suns-like, with pretty nice basing, I gotta say, and like a little bit of an OSL-looking thing on the axe. Good stuff, good stuff. Different head over here. Kind of more of a hodgepodge style paint job, but I mean, hey, this is the paint job you want to see if you're just a dude. Because this tells you, like, look at this. This looks good. This is a cool looking Angron. You got some awesome armor details, you got like a big old axe, you got a big old black sword, you got some nice red wings. You could paint this. Anybody could paint this. And the fact that the model looks good when anybody paints it is really good, because no one's surprised that, you know, your commissioned painter turned like professional painter for a studio that makes wargaming content makes a good paint job. Like, no one's surprised by this. I'm surprised by this because the model works even in the hands of a noob. I just realized he has two heads in the kit. I think they talked about it in a previous article, but this might be the first time we actually see the alternate head. You might be right. But I like this head. I like this head. The shouting head is good too, but it's a little bit more inhumane. I know it's more like the classic Blanche artwork, not complaining, but I like this one as well. You also got Robert the Chirurgeon Jones. I guess that would be Chirurgeon? I'm not sure. I've never said that out loud. It's kind of a made-up word, right? The Silent Angry, indeed. Yeah, but all of these paint jobs are good, and there's a fun little conversion here by Pete Harrison. Turned it into like a corrupted Lehman Russ. It's actually pretty nice. Love the muscle highlights, like very nice volumetric highlighting. It actually looks like they have decent volume in there, you know, like the bulging with power. That's pretty well done. Kept the sword, because again, why would you not keep the sword? That shit looks insanely cool. Put on some actual like dreadnought weapons. Gives you an idea of the size, for sure, because that's normally on a dreadnought. Yeah, he looks good. And I mean, the sculpted fur is certainly better than what I did, but I think you kind of have to do better than what I did for a model like this. Yeah, good stuff. I like the painting articles. It's a little something something, but it's kind of nice to see that every now and then. So, Horus Heresy is still getting new models, and finally, well, no, not really. So the community for Horus Heresy is still asking for more power armored stuff, but more units. Technically, this is a power armored unit of one, but it is essentially a psyker, but not necessarily. So it's an esoterist, okay. For some reason I wanted to put like a C sound in there somewhere, but it's just an esoterist. So you can use this both on the Loyalist and the Traitor side. Obviously Traitors kind of give it away with the 8-pointed star, but yeah, they get to do like demonology, summon demons and whatnot, whereas the Loyalist version gets to turn off such abilities, potentially, in other wards. It's a nice model, like, as far as things go. Got a little bit of an evil space wizard vibe, but hey, not bad. It's a shame that it's Forge World resin, and you can tell, because that cloak would not be made like that in plastic. But I get it. Horus Heresy, at the end of the day, is mostly supported by Forge World and not GW, like, you know, primary, so... But it's cool. It's cool. You got the trappings of, like, a psyker here, basically. You got a staff. You got, you know, leather gloves. You got a bunch of scrolls. You got a book. It's cool. I'm sure people will make some really nice, like, you know, paint jobs on this guy, maybe convert him into various cool things. Like, I could see this dude popping up in a lot of Thousand Sun armies in 40k proper. But, yeah, we're gonna have to wait to see that. Oh boy, there's only a little bit more to go, guys. So this is the article about the Aidbound themselves, and I can't remember Yeah, so this is the story. So particularly savage berserkers are chained into an iron sarcophagus known as an 8 cage. Just call it something cooler, but whatever. Probes and needles interface with the subject's cybernetic butcher's nails, thrusting their mind into the depths of the warp and a battle for their very soul. I mean, that is metal as fuck until you remember that you're just basically put into a closet. It's just a screaming closet somewhere on the ground. Admittedly, with a, you know, muscular transhuman dude in there, but still, you're just crying in a closet, basically. That's how I'm gonna interpret it, and you can't change my mind. So apparently some fight in nightmarish gore-soaked arenas or atop impossible mountains of skulls, while others must withstand torture by sadistic demons. Those who lose this trial meet gruesome fates. Some vanish entirely or are mutated into hideous chaos spawn, while others are reduced to a bloody mess of limbs and viscera for the berserker surgeons to clean up. I mean, hey, it's metal as fuck. At least the tone is definitely good. And then, obviously, the guys that get through end up becoming the 8-bound. Yay! So they have 8 demons in their body, basically, who are all vying for control of the primary host body. And, I mean, some of them apparently have the capability to become exalted 8-bounds. But, yeah, they don't really mention too much about them. So they have chain blades with hungry teeth, and the 8-bound favor paired eviscerators. So these are eviscerators. Okay, that's good to know. The champions have dual lacerators or 2-handed heavy chain blades. I mean, here's the stat line. So the eviscerator that they have is just a strength 6, AP-3, damage 2 weapon. They have 4 attacks, basically. 9-inch move, toughness of 5, 3 wounds. Yeah, they're just like a possessed variant, basically. I think I saw the stat line somewhere before, because I'm not, like, blown away by it, but it's definitely not a bad stat line, don't get me wrong. With a move of 9-inch, you gotta wonder, do you need a Land Raider to get around? Probably, because toughness 5 and a 3-up save are not exactly a life insurance, but... You know, if you want to save 250 points, don't buy a Land Raider, I guess. Oh, and the Exalted 8-bound are armed with an 8-bound Chain Fist, apparently. And they have better weapon skill. Same amount of wounds, same leadership. Okay, so just different weapon option. I assume stratagems are going to differentiate them more, but yeah. I guess you can take the 8-bound Chain Fist if you have 2 of them, all the way to damage 3. Which is pretty good. Like, Strength 9 minus 4 damage 3 is a really, really good stat line. I assume that's probably what you're going to see them with most of the time. Yes, that's what the dual Chain Fist would look like here in the bottom right. Not bad, not bad. And I think this is the 2-handed chain glaive they were talking about in the article. We don't have the stats for that, sadly. You do have the Red Butcher stratagem over here, which is kind of a shame that this is no longer just, you know, like a way to make Terminators better, because lore-wise that used to be the case. But basically, you get to increase your damage. So you could become damage 4 if you have paired Chain Fists, which is insane. Like, that's fucked up good. And I mean, with 4 attacks each, we don't know if there's a champion, but still 12 attacks with a damage of 4 in a unit of 3, that's really good. Weapon skill 2 up, there's no minus on this to hit, it's not unwieldy. Yeah, again, it does seem like 8-bound and Exalted 8-bound are gonna be the stars of the show of this book, along with Angron. Who'd have thunk it, it's all the new models. So there was an Arcs of Omen article here, briefly about Angron and how it includes some more stuff for boarding actions, apparently faction-specific stuff. But pretty much, boarding actions came out in the previous Arcs of Omen book, which was Abaddon, right? I'm saying right because I still haven't received mine. I'm going to have to send an email about that once again, but it is what it is. Basically, what Angron is trying to do... Well, I mean, currently the Imperium Nihilus is looking for a substitute for the Astronomican's Guiding Light, because, you know, it's a Dark Imperium. And Angron kind of takes that personally, I guess, as the story, and he decides to just, like, screw around with the Dark Imperium. You know, there's more boarding actions content. I personally don't care so much for that, but I could see why you would, because it's supposed to be quite fun. And, apparently there is something that the Dark Imperium can use called the, I guess Chorrel would be the pronunciation here, But yeah, the Choral engine is a psychic beacon dating back to the age of technology, perfectly suited to shining a light across the Dark Imperium. Unfortunately, its astropathic dial-up tone sears Angron's mind, and he sets out to smash it into a fine paste, joined by a gargantuan armada of world eaters eager to partake in the slaughter. Yeah, so yeah, he took it personally. They turned on the nightlight, and Big Daddy Angron was like, I prefer the dark. I was molded by it, yada yada yada, you know the rest. But yeah, it's basically boarding patrols for a lot of the various factions. In addition to that, well, you still need the other book, obviously. Like, in order to have access to the boarding action rules, you need the Abaddon book to begin with, and then you need this for the add-on. And a lot of the various rules that exist in 40k in some way, shape, or form have basically been put into this for the boarding actions. There's some more boarding actions stratagems here. I know nothing about boarding actions, is the thing. So I could read this and pretend to give you a reaction, but it would be unbecoming of both of us. Look, man, boarding actions I'm sure are fun. I intend to watch at least a battle report of them, just to see if I might be into them. But generally speaking, as someone that likes this stuff, the big, honkin' action figure size things in my wargames for some reason, I'm just not that interested in a version of the game where I don't get to push around monoliths and Imperial Knights and Mega-gargants, you know? But hey, again, I'm biased and I realize that. It's okay. So, Bryce the Slice actually is coming out. He has since come out, and like there's a bunch more Horse Heresy stuff for Alpha Legion and Raven Guard apparently. Cool. I mean, I still think it's sad that these things are actually resin, but we've talked about this briefly. No need to get into it. It's unbecoming of us once again. Now this I found interesting. So apparently the Grand Narrative is a thing that I have heard about before. And they did a recap of the 2022 event in this article. Apparently it was held in New Mexico in November 2022. And basically the outcome of this is going to get turned into official lore if it hasn't already. Again, with the printing lead times, there's a chance that this isn't official lore yet, but it's going to become official lore for sure. And, I mean, some of the pictures here show some cool terrain, but this isn't the interesting part. It's just more so this and what they mention, the heavy atmosphere. So there were custom tables leaning into the theme, and the decor of the actual rooms that they were playing in was always also tailored to the particular warp zone. Like, warp zone? The war zone. Excuse me. But yeah, so apparently, I mean, this is just like a kind of cute thing, but the temperature of the Ice World room was kept at a cool 4 degrees below the rest of the event. And the Forest room boasted a pleasant pine scent. I mean, you chuckle at it, but it's kind of like nice attention to detail. Apparently, the big fan favorite was the Cathedral, which was ambiently lit by candles, and complete with a ministerial preacher who periodically proclaimed prayers to the Emperor that no doubt bolstered loyal Imperial attendees. And I mean, hey, there's a picture. There's a nice little, you know, decorative skull. You got, like, candles, more skulls, a banner, and Preacher Man over there. I mean, he might be the son of a Preacher Man, too. And most of the staff was also dressed up for this, which is a lot of fun. Like, look at that. That's actually good cosplay all around. Pretty nice stuff. I would love to take part in an event like this. There's an actual PDF about it. I assume this is the official lore, to be honest with you. And I mean, look at this. Look at this stuff. Just awesomely painted armies all around. Display boards as well. Like, just display boards all around. Great paint jobs. More display boards. This is what the hobby's about, guys. Like, I'm gushing over here, but, like, this is... Look at that amount of detail there. My man, like, a lot of this stuff is sunk into the board here. Which is one thing already. But do you notice that the... You know, like, Gilliman having an OSL effect on him is one thing. You can do that. But the background behind Gilliman having an OSL effect, like that little ledge, that's what gets me. That's the thing where I'm like, now that's dedication. It's just 2 more layers of dry brushing on a terrain piece that you already painted, but the commitment to go like, yeah, that's where he's gonna stand, and therefore that would be lit up and the rest of it would be drab and rusty. That's awesome. That's so awesome. But all of these armies look fan-friggin-tastic. Like, look at this. Just great paint jobs. I'm salivating looking at it, man. I think this is what the hobby's all about. I mean, narrative play is where it's at, generally speaking. Like, fluffy games are always fun. But just look at these armies, bro. They look so fucking good. Like, I want to play each of them. I want to lose to every single one of these armies. and it would have a profound effect on me. I would have so much fun. They apparently also had a Titan painting class, and by the end of it, they made a Titan army that apparently took part in the event. So that's fucking amazing. I mean, there's going to be an upcoming event of this in November in Atlanta, Georgia. So, I mean, hey, if you're US-based and you got some money to throw around, I would go to this. I would go to this. I'm sure LVO and Adepticon are really, really fun. There's a lot of people there, but I would be very tempted to go to something like this for sure. And just, you know, engage in the sides of the hobby, the aspects of the hobby that I really like, with like-minded individuals. That's always a good time. So, you know, the LVO winner was also announced. Blood Angels won the 40k LVO event. Hats off for that. That's the last Nephilim event, and it was won by max, well, not the max, but the max unit number of Sanguinary Guard, a max number of Death Company, with some HQs and Infiltrators. Now, this is pretty good. My one complaint, but I understand why I think they did it, was they don't detail the choices of secondaries in this. So you don't know what secondaries my man was playing for. And that's like a little bit sad, because that kind of makes or breaks the army in the first place. That's going to determine so much of your performance in 40k that it would be very, very, like, it's kind of vital information, to be honest with you, to just know what secondaries an army is playing. So it's weird that it's not mentioned in the article, it's not mentioned on the list, it's not mentioned in the video. The video is interesting. They talk about the way LVO is set up, and I mean, if you don't know, I was mostly aware because I followed a bunch of podcasts of people that tend to attend and organize like various side events next to LVO. But the way LVO works is you have 3 days, and you're basically going to play 6 games almost regardless of what you do. So day 1, you're doing 3 games. Day 2, you're doing 3 other games. And if you've been performing really well, then they're going to pull you into the shadow round, because there's so many players playing that in order to make a top 8 for day 3, they literally have to have people do like showdown style matches that will determine whether or not they get into the top 8. And sometimes you'll do 1 or 2 extra games basically with that. So pretty much you're doing 3 plus 3 if you did well, maybe an additional 1 to 2 games. And then the third day you do another 2 or 3, which is insane. Like, we're talking, you're playing 10 games of 40k in 3 days. Your mind is going to be mush by the end of it. It's a different scene entirely. But really, like, obviously, congratulations to Jack Harpster over here, as called out, the Blood Angels player. I'm personally not familiar with him. There are some names in the competitive scene that I know, but I'm not familiar with Jack over here. I'm sure he's a good pilot, though, and I mean, this is a decent-looking list, obviously. Blood Angels, pretty strong. Sanguinary Guard, really, really good, even now without Armor of Contempt. And, I mean, Death Company also quite good. Infiltrators just basically allow you to play the reserve game and the Deep Strike game and turn it off for your opponent, so that's pretty awesome. Interesting to see Dante in here, because we have a resident player in my area, a good friend of mine, who hates Dante's rules and constantly complains about his points cost as well. Yup. Turns out competitive players have found a use for him, I'm just saying. Moving on. This was another little lighthearted article where they did like a showdown between Angron and various other characters. This is fun in written format. I get why they did it in a written format. I kind of wanted the video. This is the kind of thing that should have been a video on Warhammer Plus. And I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I'm going to check after the show, but I don't think it is, and that's sad, because it could have been. Mini Wargaming used to be, well, it's still a channel, it's still a studio, but they used to have a series called Who Would Win? And the whole point of it was just like lighthearted fun. And that's the typical stuff that wargamers often talk about. Like, oh, who would win between a Khorne Lord of Skulls and a Stampa? And they just put them down on the table and figure it out. They do like 1 round of it and go like, okay, cool. So that's how that would go. It's just a fun little show that they made for a while. I don't think it was particularly successful or well liked, but I had fun with it. It was just good, like, mindless content. I kind of wish they would do the same with this. But, I mean, hey, if you want to know, Mortarion wins in the end. Spoiler. Not that surprising. Morty's pretty good at the end of the day, and Angron doesn't have the durability, but he gets to come back when he dies, so it is what it is. Middle-earth strategy battle game is a game I play occasionally, but I've not been following that much. What I will say that is also really good, and this has partially, in my opinion, inspired the way 40k especially, and also Age of Sigmar is now being handled from a competitive rules perspective, is basically, I mean, Middle-earth gets 2 FAQs a year. And that's just how many they get. They don't get more, they don't get less, they just get 2. No matter what happens, there's an FAQ. And apparently they're changing special strikes, for example. So it's basically like a timing issue, essentially. They changed the betting on it a little bit. There's some new rules for Beorn and the Grimbeorn, which I guess is a unit of dudes that turn into bears. They changed one of the missions. Gothmog also apparently has a different weapon. So basically they updated it so that he can actually use the weapons on the model. I think it's just cute that Middle-earth, like you got AOS and 40k that need constant validation and head pats and pats on the back to keep going. And then you got Middle-earth just living its best life, getting updated twice per year, still having an active scene, still getting awesome new releases. Like, I'm pretty sure it's J. Claire talking here. Yup, that's J. Claire right there, head rules writer. J. Claire has done an amazing thing with Middle-earth. It's his baby, and I love the man for what he did with this rule system. And I genuinely kind of wish other rule systems would kind of be similar, but they're unfortunately not. I guess we can't have it all. It makes sense. Obviously, there was a Shilling-style article about the various Black Library releases. We kind of saw these in a previous news show that I did, because they did announce all of these, that they would become available to purchase. So, I mean, hey, if you like books, check it out, I guess. That's my big recommendation. And another Shilling-style article, which might be a little bit interesting, maybe more interesting, is the models that became available to order as of last Saturday. So you got the new Angron model. And I mean, hey, we can do a little something here. Books galore. You get a free art print if you buy enough stuff. You get the Codex, but you can get a more expensive Codex. You get Lord Invocatus, who can also be built as a regular World Eater's Lord on Juggernaut. You got the 8-bound, buy this unit. You can also, well, you can make them into Exalted 8-bound, but you can also make them regular 8-bound. Whatever you do, just buy it. Khorne Berserkers, I mean, hey, non-Trimhell Chaos Space Marine units? I never thought I'd see the day. But look at that. This man has practically no trim. Is this allowed? Apparently it is. They have a nice little painting tutorial here, if you're curious. You got Jackals, the Gym Bros, and then you got the Boarding Patrol for Space Marines. You got the Arcs of Omen Balefleet Battle Force, which is just a bunch of demonic shit for chaos, basically. Data cards, dice, for some reason not a set of 20, but 15. Not even 16, but 15. I don't know why. It's cool-looking dice, but again, I have a World Eater's Army, like, in the background, and I've not bought these, and I usually buy all the dice, so I don't know what happened, but it's weird that it's 15, and that's not just me, right? I mean, let's take a look at Angron, though, for a sec. I wanted to see his 360, at least, since he's been made available. Let's get in there. Let's get some of that sweet detail. Okay, so the recession hit the dice manufacturers hard. Yeah, probably, man. Price of dice is out of whack nowadays. I will say that the pose of Angron is almost better from the side. He's got a wicked side profile, if you look at that. He's got some serious momentum. He's got some serious, like, anger in his body, like, shape and pose. He's got, like, an entire Space Marine style, like, backpack on his back still. Kind of oversized a little. Almost a little, like, fucked up how big it is, but, I mean, hey. It's not the size, it's what you do with it. Big thorny tail. Speaking of big objects. Yeah, this is a good model. I like this one. Let's see, do we... Try to see if they have, like, some more alternate head pictures here. It's kind of weird that they don't have photos of the alternate head. I guess we can probably find it, like, find pieces of it on the sprue, but it is also just a 2-sprue model, which I guess makes sense. You don't necessarily need it to be more. You don't need that many options with, like, a character-style model. But this is a good model. I like it. I like it a lot. Darren Latham was the one that made it, actually. He's a designer. And apparently, the Kill Team stuff that was announced, the Arbitrace and Drukhari boxed sets coming this weekend. In addition with the Kasherkin, which I'm gonna say it's pronounced that way. I don't know if it is. No one knows how that's actually pronounced. It's okay. I mean, these, I believe, were released together before, but now you can actually buy them separately. Probably for significantly more money, let's be honest, but that's okay. You got some Necron reboxes here. A couple a couple new models. I think these things might be new. Kill Team Terrain could be important. And some other, like, objective style goodness. I mean, hey, if you like Kill Team, this is your week, apparently. Not bad looking Kill Team dice. Oh, so Void War bases. They have a base set now. Necromunda used to have the industrial style bases like this one. I mean, this is kind of cool. I would say, though, if you want to do your entire army with this basing scheme, and I am now basically shilling, but just buy as many of these boxes as you can, because knowing GW, this shit isn't gonna stick around. Like, they probably made a set amount of this, and when it's gone, it's gone. So if you want your whole army to just be on these bases, fucking buy, like, 20 boxes of this shit. That's the only way. That's the only way. And if you don't, you're gonna beat yourself up later over it. Let me tell you, I know for a fact. Again, just some of the skirmish warbands being sold separately. Pretty nice, pretty nice. The dildo bikes, obviously. Love the dildo bikes, man. They're fantastic. Sky Hunter Squadron. Dildo bikes. I mean, double dildo bikes, my god. The technology. It truly is flawless. And I mean, we're gonna get a new wave of made-to-order stuff for Middle-earth this time. I mean, some of these models are big classics. Gimli, smoking his pipe. Pretty nice. The Uruk-hai Siege team. I'm a big fan of that. I love this wing in Nazgul, dude. Look at that. That's just so good. That's just so good. I wonder if it's fine cast or if it's metal. Let's see. I guess it would be underneath. It doesn't say. It doesn't say. I guess I'll have to check on the weekend. I have very little use for a Fell Beast, because I don't tend to play that in Middle-earth, but I mean, I used to love this model. It's just so iconic to me. I like it a lot. Some events being announced, obviously. And more Warhammer Plus content. Again, kind of a slow week, if you notice. Like, you got a Lore Masters video, so these are usually 20 to 40 minute videos of a dude talking with some graphic images. YouTube-style content. Nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying it's bad, I'm just giving you a comparison. And apparently a Kill Team Battle Report, which, I mean, hey, if you're into it, that could be fantastic for you, but I'm not that into it, as it turns out. And I mean, you will not believe this, but we're getting into today's articles, and it's only been just about an hour, so we're doing amazing over here, actually. And in this particular article, I did read this today. I did my prep work, as I like to do. They talk about the Tomb Kings. Now, Tomb Kings are interesting, because they're basically just undead Egyptians. And the reason I say they're interesting, if you will, is pretty much because Tomb Kings kind of ended up inspiring the new Necrons in a big, big way. When, you know, Necrons went from unknown eldritch horrors worshipping gods whose power is beyond mortal comprehension, kind of Lovecraftian. When they morphed from that into, like, funny Tomb Kings in space, obviously it was taken from the Tomb Kings. And, I mean, there is a funny little anecdote here, because the master of the Tomb Kings is Setra the Imperishable, Undying King of Khemri, and 64 other titles, by the way, all well-earned, might I add. My man definitely did the work to get those. So he's probably the most cucked man in existence. Just the most cucked. Imagine being the actual leader of a dynasty. Like, the best dynasty of your empire. You literally capture, like, the whole fucking world. You just rule everything with an iron fist. You don't just rule the desert. You don't just go east and west. You go north and south. Like, you push out your borders so far that it's ridiculous. You own the world. And you tell your servants that your greatest dream, and perhaps only fear, are very closely related. Because your greatest dream is for you to rule this kingdom forever. To never see the sun set in your kingdom, and not just because it's that big, but because it's, you know, it's never gonna end. You want this to last forever, and you're scared of dying, because you realize for all your tactical acumen, for all your ambition, for all your drive, for all your skill, you are but a mortal. And that terrifies you, and you wish to be like the gods. And I mean, hey, the mortuary cults, the people kind of responsible for the Tomb Kings, the dudes that made all the skelly men, essentially, reassure you, as they're wont to do. They tell you, look, boss, don't worry about it. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna get you a body made of fucking solid gold. It's gonna look like you when you were like 19 years old, at your peak. It's gonna have a ding-dong that can like sweep that thing off of the table in the next room. Don't even worry about it, bro. Like, you're told that, and then you die, as it often happens. But turns out the mortuary cult wasn't actually, strictly speaking, lying, because they kind of already had the whole, you know, infinite life thing figured out, but with undeath, basically. And eventually they bring you back, but just in your own rotting, like, corpse of a body. No giant ding-dong, no golden body, don't look like a fucking, like, I don't know, athlete or whatever. You're just kind of a husk. Yeah, I'd be pissed. And then they tell you, like, oh, by the way, boss, that giant empire you built, yeah, that shit crumbled hard. Like, literally, within 20 years, the people that came after you kind of fucked it all up. We lost, like, the south first, then we lost the north, and then we lost a little bit of the east, big part of the west, and you know, that's when you interrupt and go, like, okay, so what the fuck is left? And you're like, we got the middle. You know the part that isn't in on the donut? The hole? Like, well, we're the hole. We got that, but nothing else. And yeah, the man is kind of pissed. So that's basically the too long didn't read version of Cetra the Imperishable. And I mean, hey, Lich Priests, never deal with them. But on the other hand, you know, if you want to reference an old meme, you can always go like, bitch please, I'm a Lich Priest, so... And apparently those Lich Priests did. But yeah, Tomb Kings kind of think, just like Necrons, because again, Necrons got this lifted to them, that the entire old world belongs to them. Because at one point it did. Technically, they're not incorrect. Like, they did at one point hold almost every single territory except, you know, the New World. And probably anything past the World's Edge Mountains. Like, well, more northeast, basically. So, you know, they didn't mess with the Chaos Dwarves, as far as I know. Or the Ogres. But maybe they got there before. You never know. But yeah, now it's only Khemri. So... I mean, hey, apparently they're trying to bring the Tomb Kings back in a fun and fluffy way. Ranks upon ranks of skeleton warriors, chariots speeding towards the enemy, flanked by monstrous constructs animated by the ancient magic of the mortuary cults. And I mean, you will be able to wield the powers of a Lich Priest once more, using a Rise, so they might have summoning of some kind, or recycling of units. Cool. Cool stuff. I mean, look, I got an opinion about Warhammer the Old World, personally, but a lot depends on what kind of support it's gonna get. I appreciate all the maps, but this is just smoke and mirrors. This is just cloak and dagger. This doesn't tell you actually anything. Neither does this. Neither does zooming in on it. This image, if it's not like an older picture, again, doesn't tell you anything. Neither does this. We know nothing mechanically about the old world. The fact that they put a Rise in bold implies that it's a rule, it's an ability. Again, that tells us nothing. To say that they're tight-lipped about this project is putting it mildly. I personally think it's stupid. I think the hype around the project is a little stupid. And no one's gonna like me for this opinion. I wouldn't classify it as a hot take. But if you want to play Warhammer Fantasy, just fucking play Warhammer Fantasy. Literally no one's stopping you. There's all the previous editions of Warhammer Fantasy Battle. You can still play those. Everything is available for them. There's Warhammer Armies Project. There used to be 9th Age. I mean, they still make it, just nobody plays it as far as I know. You got Kings of War. You got a number of options if you want rank and flank style war games. And to have to wait for GW to make it anyway, when it's taking them this long to do so and they're so tight-lipped about it, I don't know. Hey, maybe I'll eat these words when the rule set comes out, and maybe I'll become the biggest Old World fan, like, in the world over, but I very much doubt it. I very much doubt it. I don't hate the Old World as a setting. Used to read about it quite a bit. And I mean, that's when I started Warhammer. It was still active. But I just don't care for it that much. Age of Sigmar, for me, is a better game. The world is starting to accept that Age of Sigmar is a good game, and I'd say it's better than 40k. And eventually people will see that. I'll give it like 3 years, basically. So I'm not that interested, you know, in the old world. But I will wait patiently to see what ends up happening, for sure. I'm just saying, these articles, these interviews, don't tell you a lot. And I know why they don't tell you a lot, because one of the big demographics they want to touch are the people that got into this shit through Total War. And they have no fucking clue about any of this. Like, the shit that I told you, not all of it is in here. I didn't have to go on fucking a wiki page to know this shit, because I knew Cetra. Again, I was around when he was still playable. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm better for that, that's not what this is about. I'm just saying, like, they have to regurgitate information, because there's now a subset of the player, like the potential player population, that is interested in this cursory, like there's a cursory interest, but they don't know enough about it, so you have to present it as new information. I don't like it so much, but I mean, hey, you kind of got to get that hype. So this is a little bit of a discussion about White Dwarf 485, which is coming out later this month. Apparently, Boarding Action Battle Report to save Karn, which is a weird sentence. Why would you have to save Karn? I feel like he could handle himself. There's apparently a new mission type, which is a Void Siege. But again, none of this says anything to me, unfortunately. Jailbreak is the mission to get Angron out, apparently. And it is between Tempest's Scions and World Eaters. I feel bad for the Scions, personally. Like, pretty bad. I see some 8-pound over there. I don't think that's gonna work, buddy, but you never knew. Gloomspite Gits in the Mortal Realms. Apparently going into Warcry. I mean, hey, again, more skirmish stuff. Even more skirmish stuff for Necromunda. Tale of 4 Warlords. Tale of 44 Warlords? That's different. They usually just do 4. But, I mean, hey. It's a White Dwarf magazine. I haven't been reading these in a long while. Not just because I don't read that much, but more so because I just kind of fell off of them. But I'm sure they make some interesting content. I mean, hey. If you're a subscriber to White Dwarf and you like it, let me know, I guess. And more Blood Bowl models. I mean, look at this. Look at this stuff. So halflings love food. That's like pretty much a gimme. And apparently there's Cindy Pie Whistle. Is maybe a star player? Puggy Bacon Breath. Amazing feats of athleticism. 1 whole hour per day of training. Never once snuck off for mid-trip snacks. Okay, so they just love food. They just love eating. So apparently Pie Whistle's preeminent patisserie has the Bombardier skill, and she can throw a second pie because of the all-you-can-eat special. So they literally just throw food at you. And the fat dude over here with the sandwich has Halfling Luck, which is a good resource for Halfling teams. Again, I'm not familiar with the second season edition of Blood Bowl to know how Halflings get the luck. I think it might be like a dice cheating thing. Would not surprise me, but these are cool models, and I mean, that's a tasty-looking sandwich. That's a good-looking pie. Those are well-painted eyes for the most part. Shame about them being Forge Worlds, but hey. Hey, here's an actual plastic model, though. The Astrolith Bearer for the new Seraphon. I mean, look at that lizard. He's mighty, mighty good looking, isn't he? Look at that fucking icon. Serpentining all over the place. Got a little bit of magic in the middle. Some golden details, some runes. Looks like something out of fucking Stargate. Amazing. This is a cool model. Like, this is a fantastic looking model. Look at that headdress. He's so smug in it, too. He knows what he's doing. He's got, like, almost a timepiece looking armor panel over here on the thigh. Oh, they also like showed some rules. Nice. So Celestial Conduit. Add into the casting rolls for friendly Seraphim and Wizards within 12 inches of any friendly units with this ability. And in addition, add 6 inches to the range of any spells cast by friendly Seraphim and Wizards within 12. Okay, I think it already has this ability. Fairly certain that it does, actually. Revivifying Energies. Friendly Seraphim units have a ward of 6 up while they are wholly within 12 of any friendly units with this ability. I mean, hey, it might not have that. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up though. Give me just 1 minute, because I'm very curious. If I would say the revivifying aura is probably new. The Celestial Conduit, I think, already existed, if I had to guess. That seems very familiar. I've never played against Seraphon, because I tend to... Have I never? Maybe at an event, I can't remember. But our local scene doesn't have Seraphon, is basically what I'm trying to say. Astrolith Bearer, please. Do you have both? It has both. It just has both, it's just worded differently. Yep, it's just the same stuff. So basically they're saying, hey, we kept the rules. We kept the rules because they're good rules. And they are good rules. Seraphon, incidentally, has historically always had good rules. And this is a wonderful model. The new Seraphon range is shaping up to be absolutely amazing. Just knocking it out of the park. Really cool stuff. I mean, look at that club as well. It looks kind of tactical. Very 40k-esque. Very futuristic. But it still works in a fantasy setting. Like, they were able to nail that. It's just cool. I look forward to seeing the new Seraphon army. And I'm kind of hoping it boosts their popularity further. Plus, I hope people buy the new models, because I think they do look better than the old ones. No pun intended. But, yeah, I want to see pretty armies going up against me, if at all possible. And I mean, hey, these are pretty models, so, yeah. Would love to lose against them out of 10. And wouldn't you know it, if I'm not mistaken, that is the last news article that we had for today. So in the span of 1.5 hours, we kind of blitzed through it with a couple tangents. I guess I was able to still mostly cram this in here, and I'm kind of pleased about that, so it's a pat on the back from myself. We did good. And now I'm going to put on the BRB screen real briefly and change some of the actual stream information, because we're probably just going to bash some plastic, open up the chop shop, you know? So I think I should be back in like 5 minutes. Might take a bathroom break, get like the camera set up slightly differently, put like the cutting board down here, just get all into that. So thank you for tuning in so far. I'll go on a little break right now, and once we're back, we will bash some plastic and continue talking about all sorts of nonsense, maybe even related to Warhammer, you never know. But give me just 1 moment, and I will be back. Alrighty, I have returned. Let's see if I need to mess with the camera any more. Capture some more of this. I think it might be mostly okay here. Maybe like put it over a little bit. Straighten it out. There we go. That looks kind of reasonable to me. So yeah, category is gonna remain the same. Obviously, we're not gonna be messing about. We're still just doing Warhammer goodness. But instead of talking about Warhammer and only talking about it, we're going to do Warhammer. We're gonna do some stuff. We're gonna get into it, have a good time. So, where are we on the Gargant project? I mean, hey, it's gonna look very familiar to many of you. We still got this man. Still got Ugruno the Crazed. He's been green stuffed. He's missing a ton of detail work, like a lot of little like doodads and whatnot from his body. But we'll get around to that hopefully soon. We got another boyo now. This was still done mostly, in fact, almost entirely on stream. So this is Marnock's strong arm. His arm is not yet glued in. It's been pinned. I didn't do that last time, but once the green stuff dried, I went back in and I put like a little pin in there so that it's gonna be more stable. But I've not yet glued him. There was a part of me thinking like, oh, maybe I shouldn't glue it so that I can have an easier time transporting him. But I would really rather glue it in and figure out the transportation stuff later, to be honest with you. And we got a third and, for now, final Mega-gargant who still needs a lot, and I mean a lot of work, so he's not even on the base. So, this is Sungog the Shaman, who, as you can see, is riddled with holes. Like, just cut apart and rebuilt. We had the technology, apparently. He's got a weird looking finger. It's got a sprue piece in there in the middle because it was not a hand that was pointing. And I mean, hey, we're gonna do a lot of stuff on him, hopefully, to make him look more finished, or at least something like that. But I think to start off with, we might pin him to the base so that it's gonna be like a little bit more stable. Now, you might be wondering, okay, but like, what's the plan with Sungog? Why is he a shaman? How is he a shaman? And all of those other questions. Well, it's simple. I mean, I had a bit that I really wanted to use, and this isn't a comedy-style bit, this is a, you know, plastic-style bit. So we're gonna use one of the only hands we still have left, and it's gonna require an extensive amount of green stuff. It's gonna look a little bit like that. So the reason it's gonna look a little bit like that is because, and I'll have to take away the hand, is because he's essentially going to be holding this flaming ball of goodness in his hand, because he's just a badass like that. And I mean, he's pointing to where he's going to throw it, is the idea. He's making a cold shot, if you will. And that's kind of the idea with him. You might be like, oh, but does he not have a melee weapon? I mean, hey, he can drop that thing on you pretty good, if you ask me. And yeah, what if he doesn't? What if instead he just looks cool and mysterious? I think looking cool and mysterious is worth something. It's worth something to me. So the problem I'm facing, the one problem I guess, with the pinning is going to be, where is like an actual part of the model that has enough plastic for us to actually drill. I guess we could probably do this. So I'm just gonna get in here and actually pin the feet so that we can glue him to the base properly. Because there's this, like some stuff, there's some stuff we would like to do that is unrelated to this, but we can still drill the holes. Maybe we won't do the actual like hardcore pin work right now. We might not add the paper clips, pieces of paperclip rather, but I do want to drill the hole at least, and potentially also drill it through the base. Figure out his position, although that's going to be significantly easier once we actually do have the pin pieces in there. Let me move a little bit so that you can actually see it. And I mean, with this one, I suppose we could just drill through, like... This is like an entirely... like a piece that's chock full of stuff though, right? For the most part. Maybe we'll just pin him with the one foot. I'm pretty sure we just pinned the one foot with the other one. Might be enough, actually. Yeah. So, there's a couple, like, little updates I guess I could mention, interestingly enough. I have some awesome friends, and I mean, Ren is in the chat currently, or at least was. He's probably lurking. I was able to get a hold of various, mostly Duarden bits from him, like from Longbeard shields to Hammerer, champion weapons, even bits and pieces from Magma Droths and stuff. And I intend to use these as some extra detail on these lads. Just put them on their belts, give them like cool trophies that they have that they've taken from their kills, basically. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to it. More importantly, a lot of these circular shields... Oh yeah, he is in the chat pimping the Magma Droth. Pimp My Droth, the world-famous show, if you remember. But yeah, the circular shields we're probably going to use to potentially hide very botched-looking, like, kneecaps and whatnot that don't really line up. So that's going to be very helpful. So honestly, like, big thank you to Ren for assisting with the Mega-gargant project in the best possible way, basically, by giving me more plastic, because apparently I didn't have enough. You never have enough is the thing. Yeah, so we're gonna pimp these guys eventually. We're gonna do like a My Dress Up Gargant stream at one point, but that's not today. Not today just yet. Big heart emoji. You'll love to see it. Twitch Unity, of course. I mean, hey, I think to start off with, the big thing we gotta do is we'll need some sprue pieces, and we'll need to fill up some of these gaping holes on this lad, because structurally, he's not where he should be. So the leg is one of those parts that will need a lot of attention, for sure, because I don't trust that thing surviving. We might break it while we're doing green stuff work, basically. This, we might be able to get away with not even putting in sprue pieces, like on the other leg here, but the arms, again, are going to need some attention. So let's get into that. Let's just do some of that, basically. Have a little bit of fun. I already got some of the bits and pieces out that we could need, but right now we mostly just need sprue pieces, right? I'm going to just look for any kind of straight piece that we can use for this, and then cut it down to size. Makes the most sense. Go like that, and this. And then see if we clean it up a little, where could this fit? I guess the question is going to be, do we want this to be on like the outside in any way, shape, or form? But I don't think we do. And incidentally, this is one of those areas where circular shields are going to be very handy, because his knee would not really look like this in this position. Like, normally his leg would be leaning the other side entirely, as you can kind of see due to the hole. So what we're going to do once we actually build it up, past, you know, green stuffing and everything, is we'll probably put at least one shield somewhere around here-ish to kind of simulate that kneecap, you know? Like, it's still going to be where you would expect it to be due to the piece itself, but mentally we can basically, you know, signify that it's in a different position than what is suggested by the model itself. And that's going to be real good for us. That's going to be very important for us to sell this pose a little bit more, because right now it's looking mighty unnatural. Almost like some dude took a giant hacksaw to it and just, you know, rearranged the body parts in a fucked up way, but clearly not the case, or whatever. So I'm just trying to see if we can just glue this, like, piece in here for, like, structural support. And I mean, I think I'm not gonna muck around with cleaning this piece too much. Big reason for that is this guy used to be stable, I thought. What changed? Let me see. Yeah, on the base he's stable. I guess it depends on how we put him down. Okay, I was about to say, like, it doesn't make sense, but I guess it doesn't need to. So I'm just gonna glue this in into the inside of his leg. And the hope is that this will hopefully make it just slightly more. And that's the problem, you see, we just broke the arm because it kind of like leaned over. That's okay though, we can like glue that back. I'm not too stressed about it. And it might even be better that it is now broken off, because actually we can probably use some sprue pieces on the inside, kind of in the way that we're doing so right now. So maybe this is a blessing. It's a hidden blessing. Let's see. We should probably glue this side of it. And then the other one we'll glue after. Okay. I'll just drip some super glue over here as well. And over there. And I mean, hey, we might as well go the whole way. And some there. So all I'm doing is I placed a little piece of sprue on the inside here. You can kind of see it. And hopefully it's going to add to the structural integrity of it. But I would still like to use another similar piece like that, if at all possible. Try to figure out how this was on here. I think I see it though. Yeah. I think I got it. It's not gonna be that impossible to glue this back. Just trying to see if we should use some sprue pieces already on it. We will see. We will definitely see. Alrighty, well, let me just cut off another piece of sprue. Maybe learn from my mistake and not have him stand in an unstable position. So hopefully nothing else breaks off of him. Because, hey, this isn't necessarily the worst thing that broke, but something else might break that we might not be into so much. So let's be a little bit more careful, huh? What a crazy kooky idea. But let's try to be reasonable. I have completely given up hope that I will get this project done until the end of the week, because my life has gotten a little bit more busy recently, is the way I would phrase it. I don't want to go into a lot of detail. I'm not really worried about docs or undocs, but it's just, you know, not the time yet, I would say. Maybe one day. Maybe one day I'll spill the tea, I'll spill the beans, but it's okay. Right now, all you need to know is it's good stuff. It's good stuff, and I feel decent about things as they are going on now. But it does mean that I have less opportunities to stream, and that's okay. This is, you know, like just something we do for fun. I'm trying not to eat myself up over it, basically, because hey, that defeats the point. It's supposed to be a fun little thing that we do every now and then. But yes, I have completely given up hope that we will like get this project done for the open day, which is not the worst thing, because I would not really be able to play at the open day because I will have to hold demo games. Well, one demo game for sure currently, and I don't mind doing that. I was a little bit beaten up over it for a little while. I was like, oh man, I kind of wish I could play at my own event. I kind of wish, you know, I could just have fun like other people, and I was gonna like be real sad that I can't. But then you realize, like, hey man, I'm the organizer, right? Like there's an implication there that I'm willing to potentially do stuff that other people might not want to slash need to. And that's okay. Like I took this upon myself, basically. If I didn't want to be the organizer, I could have just not organized it, right? So to complain about it is just kind of silly, right? It makes no sense. And it's just kind of dumb at the end of the day. It would just be, you know, being negative for the sake of being negative. And I don't want to do that, because it doesn't really help anybody. Like, I don't want unearned sympathy. I don't want people to be like, oh, you poor thing, you can't play Warhammer this one weekend when you can play on every other weekend if you want it. So, yeah, I'm not going to complain about it. It's just like one of those things. And hopefully we'll get to give new players a very good first experience, and I mean, hey, that's worth any sacrifice, in my opinion. That's how you grow a community. You make a couple of sacrifices. You don't have to go overboard. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, just give away all your models or some shit. Like, no. Be reasonable, but hopefully, you know, if you manage to give a very good first experience to your new players, they're more likely to stick around, and that's a good thing, because then they're going to become players for life. Later on, you might run into them as an opponent. They'll be very grateful, you'll have a great game, you'll have, like, a great experience, and I mean, you'll make friends. That's the big thing, man. You'll make friends. And making friends is awesome. Especially Wargamer friends. Nerd friends are the best, because you get to talk nerd shit with them. That's why communities like this that we're kind of trying to build here are so good. Because you have, like, an unfiltered... a place where you can be unfiltered, rather, is maybe how I would phrase it. You can talk about all the nerd shit that you want. And that's great. That's fantastic. You can kind of let it out, you know? Go crazy. And then not badger all your other normie friends with it, who just smile and wave. And I mean, hey, nobody blame them. Like, we're not all cut from the same cloth. Not everybody can be a based Warhammer enjoyer, as they say. And that is okay. You have your cool friends and you have your lame friends. But my Wargamer friends are the coolest, for sure. At least for me. And I mean, hey, definitely not biased or whatever. So I'm hoping that even if I don't get to play at the open day, I'll have a good time. And turns out, that's not really an if, the second one that is. Well, neither of them are an if we're being honest. I know for a fact I'm not going to be able to play. I canceled the games that I had scheduled with people. And again, thankfully they were cool enough to not be upset about the cancellations, which is a big thing because, you know, they could have been like, man, I can't believe you're canceling. But again, I have reasonable friends, and they were like, hey man, it's understandable, and I appreciate what you're doing, so, like, thanks for letting me know in time. And some people have already set up different games. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But, yeah. Like, basically, whether or not you have fun with something mostly comes down to your attitude, I think, in the moment. And for me, I want to go in with the attitude of, hey, I want to have fun. So I think I'll be able to pull it off. I got a good feeling about it. Let's put it that way. And we're just adding more and more plastic to this to try to build it up a little. Suppose we could maybe, what if I cut that there? That probably wouldn't be long enough. There's a little, like, sprue piece on here. I guess it might be just the perfect length. You know what? Yeah, let's cut underneath it and just see. Let's see how we could add it to the existing structure that we have, I guess. So I'm gonna have the open day, and I'll have a good time regardless. And I'm going to do my best to give people their best kind of first experience of 40k with their own armies, which is always, I think, a good recipe. If you already have your stuff, and you're just looking to get introduced to the rules side of things, and you have a friend that you're bringing with you, that's like, great. As someone that holds demo games, that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, oh yeah, baby, this is gonna be a good one. Because it means that you've already made, like, some commitment to it that shows, like, some determination, some proper interest in the game, is going to make my life a little easier as the person holding the demo for you, because I won't have to explain certain lore things and other various bits and bops to you, because you probably already know, actually. You probably already looked up a fair bit of stuff, at least about your own faction. You might have read your codex, your battle tome, your whatever, and that's great. Again, that's less work for me, but in a good way. Like, not this skimping type of work, like, oh no, I don't want to work. It's more like, great, like, we don't have to spend time on useless shit. We can instead, you know, focus on the cool parts of this. So I'm really looking forward to it, actually. Let me get some more bits and pieces. I want to add at least one. This one's going to be kind of hard. I want to add another sprue piece to the other side of his knee, because I'm a little worried that that might still lead to a breakage. It's unlikely, but I would feel better. There was a little piece here. And I mean, hey, we can add this in a super cool way from the looks of it. Yeah, this will actually work pretty nicely. Something like this. Just scoring the plastic to essentially know where I will need to make the cut. Let's see. I think it was pretty steep of a cut. I mean, I guess we can just check as well. Yeah. So it's gonna be an interesting cut, to say the least. Okay, I do see it. For a second I lost it, but then I found it again. Might not be, like, steep enough, but... No, that's, like, fairly basic. Whatever. We'll figure it out. Might be fine anyway. I think it is going to be fine. Yeah, it has the capacity to be fine, I would say. The thing I want to do, though, is add a little bit of glue to the thigh area so that this will have the kind of structurally enhancing effect that we're looking for. There we go. So he's got one ugly leg right now, with all the screw pieces that have been added. He's looking a little biomechanical, for sure. And I still kind of want to add one more. I don't have any more straight pieces left. Let me see if I can locate another one. I would like to have one more on him. We're looking for a medium length here. This is actually pretty good for us. I think this will be... I mean, this is actually too long, but we can cut it down to size. Yeah, almost perfect, but not quite. Might even just work, like, straight the way we cut it. Yeah, I'm actually just gonna, like, use that. We got very lucky for a number of reasons. One is the cut is good, the other is that my knife didn't land in my thigh. That could have been a live leak video in the making. Sorry about the noise there, by the way. It just kind of rolled off. These things are supposed to have, like, the bottom of the scalpel is supposed to help, you know, stop that from happening. It didn't work this time. But I got lucky. Didn't stab myself. Always a good thing. Hashtag don't stab yourself in general, but definitely don't do it on stream, because Big Daddy Twitch will come after you and tell you that it's not suitable content for advertisers. And I'm like, bro, I stabbed myself. I don't care about the advertisers. Yeah, so the leg is very chunky, like very Roblox positive right now. It's just a little too much at the minute. His other leg I'm okay with. It's just a tiny cut. It's completely fine. So we're gonna have to do some stuff with this later. Let me just add a little bit more super glue and we'll let it, like, dry, cure, do its thing. We'll probably get glued to this a couple times as we're working on this, but that's just part of the job description at this point. That's significantly better, and it's going to make green stuffing this so much easier, I think. Argument to be made that we could still add like a couple more bits and pieces here. There is a little trick that I wanted to try, but I don't know if now's the time. I seem to remember some people using aluminum foil for green stuff style conversions to basically fill stuff up. And I kind of tried it, but it didn't really work, as it turns out. Like, I wasn't able to do it the way that I wanted to, and I can't tell if that's because these things are just hollow, and therefore I kind of don't have the capability to stuff them full of aluminum foil. Like, I could, but I don't want to. I don't know, maybe for older models it was a possibility, but with this one currently, I didn't see how I would go about doing that. So, I didn't. But now there are just a couple smaller little recesses that we could potentially fill up. And I'm a little tempted to try it, but not so sure about it, I guess. But the leg it feels much more structurally sound, I would say. And I'm into it for that reason. I'm pretty big into it, in fact. So, if I'm gonna glue this arm back on, which we're definitely going to do, no doubt about it, I guess the question becomes, do we glue it back on and then go from there and try to add the rest of it back and like add further structurally helpful parts to it? Or do we do it differently? And I don't yet know the answer. What I do know is there's a couple of nice little details over here. And I'm gonna slice these off. So there's a little raven skull, I think. I mean, we might replace some of these. The raven skull is cool, but maybe we have a different bit that we could use for that. There's something else. I want to say a compass. No, it's a timepiece. Okay, it's like a little timekeeper. Well, I'll remove that as well, because any kind of green stuffing we'll do is going to happen in that area. So it doesn't really make sense. I'm talking about these two little hangy bits that we just removed. They were essentially in the way. Because for green stuffing, we're going to need to go in there. And even if we just want to glue something in there, we would have to go through those bits. So it makes sense to just remove them for the time being. We'll probably put them back or use different stuff and put that in its place. But yeah, right now we just needed like some space there, basically. I mean, good question how we would go about doing this. I feel like maybe we just glue it back and then go from there for the time being. So I see that this is a glue spot from before. Apparently this was merely held in like 2 locations from the looks of it. Seems unreal. But you never know. Okay, I think that's roughly how it was. We'll check the profile view in a sec. Kind of sorta have to. We had a pretty decent pose before. I was a fan. I guess there's probably one more location over there. So we do have 3 contact points for this. Yeah, I think if this actually cures, it'll hold. I'm hoping we didn't mess up with this like breaking off. Theoretically, it shouldn't matter because, you know, we glued it into place once, so therefore it should be possible to glue it into place another time, right? But you never know. Still not completely cured, hasn't like grabbed it just yet, so have to hold it a little bit longer. So gotta figure out like what level he should be pointing at. Kind of like this right now. I don't want him to just point straight ahead because it doesn't really make sense. It's a giant. Not a lot of stuff is gonna be eye level with him. So pointing a little downwards makes more logical sense, basically. Still not fully grabbing onto it, which is giving me some concern here. There's some glue on my palm now, which I didn't notice before. No, there's definitely more like turned. I think this is how he was. I guess I could go back and check my own VOD to figure out the pose, but I'm pretty sure I got the right thing in mind. It's just my glue is taking a little bit longer to fully set here. Add a little bit more stuff here. Okay. Incidentally, that is eye level now, so that's not what we wanted. It's a little bit lower. Somewhere in between the stratosphere, obviously, but what if I added a little bit of glue here? I feel like that might be the secret sauce. Find another contact point, basically. Yeah, this is pretty solid now. I'm just gonna check the pose that I kind of have in mind off screen here, if you'll excuse me. I have another bit that this man will have, which is a bell. I want to kind of put it on his face to, well, on his head, figure out if it's gonna work the way we want. See that dry fitting action, huh? I think the pre-broken pose was a little bit better. Like, it just had slightly more noticeable shoulders, but it might not be completely awful, to be honest. Like, I don't hate it. I don't hate what we have going on here, for sure. It's decent for what it is. And it might be easier to secure as well. I guess just this part of it doesn't, like, seem to hold up so well. Let's see the profile view. Like, is it gonna look okay from the front is the big question. Because for him, the golden angle is most likely going to be the front. Kind of going to be determined by the fireball, but this is a very two-dimensional piece. It only looks really good from one particular angle. So I guess we could change that with a little bit of a heat gun, but I don't know if I want to go that far. So I think it works though. I think it works. I guess the question is, do I want to break it back just to see if maybe something else would be better? Keeping in mind that glue on glue is going to be harder to actually, well, glue. If you'll excuse the repetition of words there. Would be more like that, I assume. Might be too much of a twist in there. I'm not sure. Yeah, that doesn't work because his hand doesn't line up properly. It's a fine line. It's a fine line, but basically want the hand and the finger to line up the way we want, and that's currently what we're struggling to do. Yeah, I think that's about as good as it's gonna get. So we're going to lock it in by just adding more glue to it. Again, glue on glue, not that great of an idea, but that's why we're gonna muck around with the plastic later. Once this has had a little bit of time to set. And I mean, we can kind of take advantage of the fact that he's gonna be wearing a helmet, where his eyes are gonna be completely obscured. So So we can change the profile of the model slightly by doing that, which is one of the reasons why I would like to add the bell to him. The other is I just really like the idea of it. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun actually. That's gonna look pretty good. The one thing is we're not gonna glue the bell on his head because I want to be able to paint his face actually. With a model this large, there's a pretty high chance that we're going to have some angles where, you know, you'll get to see underneath his helmet, and therefore it doesn't really make sense to glue that on, because it's just going to make a lot of stuff look pretty bad. I think the arm is like too low now, actually. Yeah, it's a little bit better all of a sudden. I feel like it's just taking us a very long time to get back to the one pose that we built before. It certainly feels that way. No, don't go away, Belle. I need you. I need you in my life. Yeah, no, I think we've done it. I think we've done it. I'm feeling decent about this. So while that dries, the question becomes, and I mean it's not really a question for the reasons we talked about before. On the other side as well, he's got a lot of like little hangy bits, such as that one. And I'm gonna remove it. I'm gonna remove it and then we're gonna add it back later. We'll mess around with the order if we want, but... So that has been dropped, but thankfully I recently cleaned my room, so there's not a lot of anything on the floor. And nobody's doing the dinosaur either. No, Raven Skull, I need you too. Okay, we've successfully saved everything. Very, very pleased. And I mean, hey, I'm just gonna go in, start cutting off little sprue pieces the same way as we were doing before. And start supplementing this bad boy a little bit. Because we need a lot. We need a lot of stuff on him before we're fully satisfied. Because right now, it feels like, I mean, it doesn't just feel like, we know for a fact it is like that. He can break rather easily if we're very careless with him, which we just were, as it turns out. So I do need to be more careful. That's on me. So if I clean this up a little, that's like actually a perfect match for the inside area there. It's a little long on this other side, but I think that's easily doable. That should be fairly easy to fix, if nothing else. Let's see. It's always funny how these random cuts sometimes line up into just perfect pieces. Okay, can you stay there for just the briefest of moments? You kind of can, thank you. Very much appreciate it. Did I leave a little mark? I did. It's so good that this plastic is easy to score, because it means you can very easily, like, well, it's easy to damage, but in this case, it's so good that a simple little touch of a dull knife next to it is enough to leave a mark so we know where to cut. Now the one thing we gotta be careful with is this piece, if it is the correct size, can fall in. So we kind of have to almost do like a leap of faith a little bit. I'm gonna put my man down because I'm afraid of strong-arming this little glue nozzle and like breaking him again. It would not be fun. And this is actually why we got rid of that little beer keg that he had over there, holding his cloak. Well, in this case, hood, I guess. It's a very tiny cloak. I dropped my little plastic piece, but again, sometimes it pays to have a little bit of order. I'm pretty sure I see it. Oh, yeah, there it is. I have indeed found it. I would recognize this piece anywhere. And again, we're just kind of trying to stick it in here. We don't do phrasing. It's okay. Might have made the cut too large from the looks of it, but we might be able to still salvage it. I think we're good. I think we're good. We just gotta glue it a little bit more. Yeah, so that's a little piece we just added. And I mean, we need a couple more of these in a similar position before I'm declaring that arm secure for sure. So, let's see. Well, we're not really in danger of this breaking. I'm just trying to see if... We haven't really changed the profile of the rest of the model, which is a good thing in this case. Okay, you stay there. You stay there, beautiful. And let's get some more straight pieces. Who knows, maybe we'll keep getting lucky and keep cutting pieces that just work for our purposes. It's unlikely, but you never know, I guess. Let us see. I mean, this one's definitely too long, but as we saw before, we almost made it too short. So maybe keeping it a little bit longer is not the end of the world. I kind of almost want to build like a solid wall of plastic here. Actually, the super glue stain might be helpful for us right now. Well, yeah, it will. It will be. So we know where this would touch. Now, obviously, we have to adjust our cut a little bit because it cannot possibly be the final location, turns out, because if it goes over, then, and this still touches, it's hard to explain, but yeah, it's not the exact mark that was left. It's a little bit different. Fell in, but we were able to rescue it. It didn't fall in because it's too small, though. It fell in because only one side is currently being glued out of all the sides that we could glue. So this is going to be a little bit like a slow cut, because if we get this right, it's going to be so good. But to get it right, we have to figure out the perfect amount to cut off of here. Like we're now essentially doing the fine-tuning part. Just a little bit more. Okay, literally probably like a millimeter is currently what we need. And only from this particular side, actually, from the looks of it. I'm going to do like an alternating directional cut here and just see if this now fits. It's almost like a rounded down because we've done two cuts from two sides going in different directions. Yeah, that actually works, but what if we cut off a little piece of the corner so that it was even smoother? Again, now we're just like fine-tuning the smallest little plastic piece. And I'm using the clippers for this. Shave away at the material a little bit. Let's see. That might have the right shape now, actually. Yeah, I like that. I like that, actually. So, we know exactly where to glue this, because we spent so much time building up to it. I'm going to add a line of glue here, a little bit to the other side. There's a very high chance we glue ourselves to the model right now, because it's all the parts that we're looking to manipulate have glue on them, as it turns out. But we mostly made it from the looks of it. And I'm feeling pretty good about that. We didn't have that much left over from that piece, unfortunately. Yeah, because whatever little like we shaved off ended up kind of jumping around in the meantime. Take a piece out of this on the leg, because that seems to be fully cured now. Cured enough that we don't have to be worried about gluing to it anymore. Nice. We'll take like a sanding stick or something to it after to round it off a little bit. We need one, I would say 2 more sprue pieces for this particular shoulder blade area. So, hey, I think we should be able to get 2 more straight pieces. There's one here that I doubt it's going to be long enough, actually, is the thing. So I'm going to go around, keep going where we started. Hey, I mean, if nothing else, we're being very responsible using all the plastic that we paid money for, not just the parts that, you know, were properly cast. So that's something. We're not really saving the environment, considering this is still dangerous material, and a lot of it is going to get tossed and probably not recycled, even though it should be recycled. But that's besides the point. Technically speaking, we're doing good by using more of it that we paid money for, rather than just throwing it into the trash. Okay, so I'm trying to see if it's true what they say, that the more you do something, the better you become. Because this is the 3rd, like, piece that we're working on here. And I tried to pay the tiniest bit of attention to the angle of the cut, which apparently I did not get right at all. But maybe I can fix it. Try to figure out, like, because this didn't used to get knocked when I would exert pressure on here. I feel like my table has been moved slightly, which is not all that surprising considering, you know, I cleaned up briefly, so there's a chance I'm actually the one that had moved it. If you happen to know that our mission has been a success, perhaps not a roaring success, but a success nonetheless, and I will keep building the Great Wall of Plastic apparently here. Or the gray wall of plastic. Yeah, just one more piece though, and I think we're gonna be fine on this one. Are we so lucky that the final little piece of plastic that is left over is good enough for this? Because it feels like this side of it is perfect. But the rest of it doesn't want to match. Plus my fingers are just not really wanting to work apparently. No, I'm positive that can work. And I'm going to take a gamble. We're going to gamble on it, and we're going to win. Putting it all on red. I think that might be lost to the ether. The gamble did not pay off. At least I think so. I'm gonna be able to nudge it out. I think I see it. No, that's just gone, I think. I have certainly lost track of it. Like, it feels like... Well, it was too good to be true for that one. Perhaps something like this. No, those are too dinky. Those are just too small, and they're not going to work for our purposes. Alright, well, you've left me no other choice but to slice another piece of plastic off then. As if I'm not ready to do that. Let's see. Don't need this piece, for now at least. Could be useful later, but... a little nub part that connects it to the actual cast. Okay, let's like actually look at how big this needs to be. What size shall we work with, I suppose, is the big question here. And figure that one out. Alright, alright. Have made the tiniest of marks. And I'm hoping that we're gonna actually be able to cut that. Slightly better, like, angle on the cut than before. Maybe there is something to this whole improving thing. But now we have to take the tiniest of bits off the other side. Like a millimeter. So something like that, I think. Okay. Because that's actually perfect. I didn't drop it. I didn't drop it. I was able to find it. Oh, now it's glued to my hand. Well. Interestingly enough, the super glue has already dried previously. Normally, free-form super glue like that, not attached to anything, doesn't really cure. It's not fast. So it's a bit interesting. Oh, that is so much better, and that seems like it's not gonna just break. So I'm actually feeling pretty pleased about this one. There's like just a little wall of plastic that we're gonna be able to like clean up completely, and green stuffing over that is gonna be so much more like enjoyable. There's still like an armpit that we gotta do stuff with, and let's see. This is a pretty tiny piece. I'm gonna find some more plastic to plug the armpit with. So we kind of need it, I think, at this point. Kind of badly need it, in fact. How big do we need, though? Honestly, like a longer piece for this might be better, because I can't really tell. Should have held on to that, but kind of just winged it. Still some useful parts on there. Well, for our purposes at least, useful. Doesn't have any bits on it, but still, we could use it. It's not actually that big for the armpit. Don't have that much space. Very surprised to see that. Not complaining though. And incidentally, this is not like the other cuts that we were making just a second ago, where, like, oh, you have to adjust for the fact that this isn't going to be able to go in like that. Like, no, this is, we were able to move the piece into where it's going to go and, like, measure it next to the rest of the construction, basically. So we know exactly how big this needs to be and how this will connect the rest of it. So I'm just gonna get some super glue in this like actual hole in his armpit that he has for some reason. And the some reason is, us mucking around, basically. as good of a job as we did, we immediately kind of messed up. But we were able to fix it. In fact, it's even better than before. There's a small hole there, but I think that's fine. Same deal at the top here, like I'll just leave those. I'm feeling pretty good about his left arm right now. So all we did was we stuck that little piece. You can see the white part that I kind of cut into there. So his armpit is kind of like filled up now. It's going to be easier to work with that. The rest of it I think is just good. It's going to be easy enough to green stuff. The rest basically. So 2 appendages now exist in a state that I would say is good. I would describe it vaguely as at least as good. So now the question becomes the rest of him, basically. Some of this is going to be tough. In fact, all of this is potentially going to be tough. So I need another long piece, certainly longer than the little leftovers that we have right now. And this is going to be a little annoying because this particular long piece has going to... It's going to go in a very particular location, like for structural purposes. It's not how I would build this if I would just be looking to fill this area up, is the main thing. But I think in this particular instance, if we want this to be more secure, then we kind of have to do it this way. Okay, so first we gotta slice into this and make like a little arrow shape, because there's a slight corner in the spot that it's going to get glued into. So you might as well make it ready for that. I don't know if the angle of those is good enough. I guess we'll see in a second. At least this is fairly easy to dry fit. I mean, it's not perfect, but it could work. Yeah, actually that does work. Okay, put you down like that. Now, we cannot make this piece too big because essentially this is like strictly structural. So what I'm trying to do here to kind of give you the play-by-play, if you will, is I'm trying to add a piece of plastic to his arm, his actual like shoulder joint, the outside of it, to connect to the main body where we had to make a cut, where we had to like slice through with a hobby saw. The reason I'm doing that is hopefully by gluing these 2 areas together, I will just make it like slightly more structurally, you know, like possible for this to exist without just breaking from a stiff breeze. We're just looking to make it a little bit more safe and sound. And incidentally, we could do something fairly similar with all the other pieces too. And then green stuff later in post will allow us to hide this, which is not bad. It could potentially work, for sure. So I would say we need 1... Let's get another piece for the top, because that's going to be much harder to do later. Okay. At this point, eventually, that sprue is just going to run out of stuff to cut off of it now, which is an interesting situation to be in. Never thought we'd end up using so many pieces for this, but I'm kind of happy that we are, if anything. Okay, I think we need like a shallow, relaxed kind of cut in this, so that it fits above the previous piece we just added. There we go. That's much better now. Not like a whole lot of space to glue it to, but enough, I think. Definitely enough, and it's gonna make our life so much easier with the green stuffing. Okay, so So that will go like that. That's important because this at that point has to be cut like this. Okay, kind of gluing a little bit, but that just means it's working. Let's see, that's my little mark. This can be just a straight cut, I think. Doesn't need to be anything more because hopefully none of this will be left visible after the fact. Like once we glue it in, it's going to be visible, but in the long term, we will most likely add a ton of green stuff over these areas, and therefore it's not really going to be noticeable that these are there in the first place. The one thing we got to be careful with, that's kind of difficult, is to add glue there, because this is in addition to fulfilling a role in terms of, let's see, can I move it around a little bit? Sorry for the little pause there, but in order for this to be like a structural piece, we do actually need it to connect to the main body. No, I don't think that's gonna work, sadly. No, I nudged it too far, and it's just like on the inside of his body now. Thankfully, it is coated in super glue, and it's not really in the way. So we can do a do-over, basically, and just slice off another piece and do the same thing with. And I do want to, and I feel like second time around, we're going to be able to actually do it. And I really want to do this because I do think that it's going to increase structural integrity. Like, I'm convinced that this will make this more stable. And I really, really want that because I don't want this model to break while I'm green stuffing it. Basically, it's the current situation. Maybe I'll learn from my mistake, though. And leave like a slightly bigger area over there. Now let's slice into this. You know, times like these, I will say, it's very tempting to just build things by the book and not screw around so much after the fact. Like, being unique is fun, but sometimes it would be good to finish a model in like a timely fashion, you know? But that just ain't me. So that's like, this has very little structural impact, the way we ended up doing it. But I mean, hey, it has been glued there. It's holding pretty strong. And I feel like probably one or two more of these will be enough. And I think one of them we might even just have with some of the little cuts that we've already made over here. It'd be difficult though. We need one more medium length piece for this particular side before we go into the armpit. And with him, the armpit is going to be actually kind of the more tough part of this model, because that's where the hole is much larger. Incidentally, the reason why I didn't start there though is because I feel like it's much more prone to breakage, whereas with this side of the model, we could basically just have fun and slightly increase structural integrity. So I'm hoping that by doing it in this order, what we will have achieved is better structural integrity, so that when we're doing the armpit stuff, there's no chance of it breaking, or a significantly lower chance of it breaking at any rate. But it remains to be seen if that's going to be the case. So, I mean, hey, we're gonna know in like a little bit, because I am literally about to add the two final pieces to this over here. And I mean, after that, we'll just immediately see. And if it breaks again, then, I mean, hey, we've glued it once more tonight, like once already, and I mean, we can glue it once more if it comes up. That's what I was trying to say. My mind was going a little too fast and saying the wrong things. But hey, it's not so bad. Okay. Well, we know how to put you over there. And that's you. Like, you see, that went actually pretty flawlessly. You could even, there's an argument to be made for leaving the last thing, like, completely alone, but I think we're not going to. I think we could easily, like, cut something to size there. There's gonna be, like, the tiniest of holes there, but it's okay. What if we do this? So scared for this poor little hobby knife, though. Like, the blade, after so much cutting, feels like it's about to just, like, burst on me. At any moment. I guess we can't really do that corner piece because we don't have the same amount of space available to us. Well, that's okay then. This is looking much, much better than I thought already. And again, like, this seems fairly safe now. We can't really afford to stop here, though, is the thing. And that might be, like, a weird way of phrasing it. But I guess what I'm referring to is the fact that if we stop now and if we just ignore the armpit, we are going to have so many headaches in the future about it, because we are going to have to green stuff that entire part. And if we just don't fill it up, it's going to be, like, it's going to need so much green stuff. It's going to need so much material. I wonder if that would be a prime location for just stuffing it full of aluminum foil and coating it in glue. Because there's not a whole lot of places it could go. And we've done the structural part, and I don't really see how we could add to the structure here. Should I try it? Should I just get the aluminum foil and try sticking it in there? Because the problem with the rest of it, like the legs and stuff, is gravity. But here, if we glue the top, stick it in there, it doesn't have anywhere to go, is kind of my thinking. So as long as we get the size right, I think we could be golden. I mean, hey, this whole project has been filled with a lot of experimentation, and most of it, I'd say, has gone pretty good. Like, it's gone pretty well, actually. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the tiniest bit of aluminum foil, and by that I mean an entire fucking roll of it, because I don't have anything smaller. Bring it over here, and hey, we'll mess around with aluminum foil for once, for a pre-green stuff thing. I'm not going to put on a BRB screen. I'll be right back in, like, literally 40 seconds. So give me about one moment. And I have returned. You can hear the telltale sounds of aluminum foil already, I think. I think I'll cut off, well, not really cut, but tear off like a sizable chunk. And we'll just work with it from that point on. Not very even, but... let's see. How big is this thing? We already kind of have what we need from the looks of it. I'm sure I saw this somewhere, but I have no idea, like, who to credit, I guess. And I think in this particular instance, this is actually going to work, too. Let's see, I'm gonna just jam it in there pretty good. And if we need to, we'll add more, obviously. And I think we do. Let's see, that might not be the right shape, but we'll figure it out. Part of it might be the right shape. Okay, we don't need that particular piece. And I mean, hey, this thing's gonna get compacted, so this might not be enough once again, but we'll figure it out, I think. Yeah, I think I found the application for this particular trick, and I'm gonna show you in a sec. Yeah, so look at my man's armpit here. Look at like the profile views of it. It just works. It just works, and it was so much easier than some of the other stuff we were doing. But the reason it worked is because we could glue it to the top and then jam it into place, like shape it into a nice location. And now it's pretty good. And now we don't have to worry about this being unstable because it's held from two sides by two very different materials. At least I'm not gonna like drop it. It would have been funny if I did right there though, but you know, my point stands. Yeah, so that other armpit is good, this is good, that's good. We don't want to do anything with this. He's got a wrist that we need to actually, like, build up. Because, I mean, eventually he's going to need a hand. He's going to need a hand, to be sure. I wonder if all the glue has, like, cured on the leg, though. I'm going to say that perhaps it has. I'm just gonna sand down some of the offending edges here. Because again, this stuff will matter when we green stuff. Unless you want something like a straight line there showing through, we should try to treat it, basically. And we should try to treat it now. Or around nowish. Definitely before the green stuff is applied, basically, is the big idea here. I mean, hey, I've been having a lot of fun working on these models. Like, I know I was complaining earlier, like, oh man, it would be so much easier to just build them out of the box. And I don't think that's a complaint, that's just the truth. Like, you just follow the assembly instructions and, you know, you don't gotta do all of the stuff that I'm doing. But, hey, you get to learn a bunch of interesting things about yourself and how to convert models if you do this kind of stuff. If you're, like, a little braver. And I'm not trying to pat myself, like, on the back too hard. I'm just saying, like, you know, you learn how to cut things, learn how to rebuild things, which is quite important in the grand scheme of things. It's gonna come in handy. It's a good skill in this hobby for sure. And it makes for more unique models, and I like unique models. It's a big part of the hobby for me. To have unique looking objects in your possession. So that's kind of what I'm all about. To a degree. Well, I always used to be very, very into the conversion stuff. And I'm very happy that I was able to, you know, get back into it a little with this project so far. And I mean, it's not done yet, obviously, it's still a lot to go, but so far it's been a pretty good time. Yeah, I'm very, very pleased with this leg, actually, how we were able to build it. Now that it's, like, filed down, the silhouette, the profile of it, is actually like really nice. Look at that. Look at it from like this particular angle. You can hardly tell. You can hardly tell that something's missing. I mean, you can tell I'm calling attention to it quite a lot, actually, but it's working. It's working pretty nice, actually. He's a little bit heavier now, this boy, than he was before. So I suppose one of the other things about the wrist is going to be the hand, as it turns out. We need to make some decisions about the hand. And it's not really decisions. They're not difficult, particularly, because a lot of it is going to be kind of decided for us, I think. Like, how open do we want this hand to be? I think perhaps we could do it like that. And this is the perfect size, incidentally. No, don't lose your fingers, buddy. You need those. Maybe not to live, but you do need those. Okay, if this works the way that I want it to, I will officially be scared. Like a little. It kind of does. Okay, I'm a little scared. Sometimes, you know, things just work out. Nothing broke on my man, which I will take as a sign of good things to come, I suppose. Okay, so the reason I'm so happy is because we randomly cut off a straight piece of plastic sprue earlier, if you remember, and now I have just checked it next to this this hand that he has, and it's basically the perfect size for what we want to do. And shave it down a little bit after, but we're not like overly worried about it right now. And it's gonna allow us to rebuild this hand to make it slightly more open, which in turn, well, it would allow us, but I keep losing the fingers. What about those missing fingers? Think they've made lesser men, grip hold of casted metal, and all the other lyrics from Missing Fingers by Ruben, of course, but you get the point. The fingers are no longer missing, I repeat, the fingers are no longer missing. We have the fingers. Fingers acquired. I'd be very sad if we had lost them. Devastated even. But thankfully that is not happening tonight. And I mean, it's time to glue. Always time to glue. Would this like work better? Kind of. It kind of would. At least the dry fitting is going to be significantly easier with this. So it would have to be like that, and then this would go here. Doesn't work flawlessly, I guess, so far as my observation. That does. We could keep it like that. And again, we just need, wouldn't you know it, another long piece of sprue. Thankfully, I was able to find one immediately. It's almost like I have a big sprue of stuff next to me or something. Incredibile. So what are we looking for here? We're looking for that. So something like this. It's essentially what we want. This piece is deliberately going to be a little smaller than what we need, because otherwise it's going to have a pretty big impact on the overall profile of the hand, even after we green stuff it. So, I mean, even right now it's too big. The smaller the better with this one, because this is purely structural. If it has any bearing on the overall shape of the hand, then we fucked up. It's basically the situation we're in currently. We don't want this one to be visible in any way, shape, or form with the final product. Okay, that works. Now to add like a little bit more glue. I think soonish we'll need more, like, well, not just more, but new super glue. Alrighty, let's put it on like that. Don't drop it. Don't drop it. It would be a pretty important deal. Okay. And then, that out of the way, that's not what we want. Decided to turn it once again. I thought turning it compared to previous position would be good, rotating it slightly, but it did not work. It incidentally did not work at all. But I think it's going to work now. And where is my fireball? I mean, I guess it could work like this now. Probably not the words you want to hear after so much mucking around with something. I guess it could work, but... And look, man, I'll take what I can get at this point. Yeah, I never asked, like, how's everybody's weekend, dude? Everybody have a good time, living their best life? I had a fairly busy weekend, but all good stuff again, so... Can't really complain. It doesn't feel right to complain in any way, shape, or form. Saw some cool movies, hung out with some awesome people. Really, really good stuff all around. I feel like if we green stuff this, it's actually going to be perfection. We just, you know, have to get there eventually. It's going to be annoying. The inside of a hand is hard to green stuff, to say the least, but we'll have to learn how to do it. And I mean, with that, so in his case, we might be able to get away with literally just using green stuff for the wrist. I mean, that kind of works. I guess now the question is, do we glue this on? There's a part of me that really wants to, I won't lie to you. Big part of me definitely wants to, but... Is it the right idea? I think it might be. I think it might actually be. Well, let's go crazy. If it's the wrong idea, let's do it anyway. Oh, it's gonna glue. I can feel it. Maybe it's a little heavy now, considering we just added more plastic to it, but... Yeah, it's gonna be pretty great, actually. guess the question is, do we want to have some kind of structural support here? Kind of tempted, because that piece like fits perfectly. I'm gonna need you to do something incredible for me, which is not fall over and break. Okay, so we actually found a use for these little nubby bits. Because apparently they might be perfect for like a wrist. Okay. Wonder if it's still like large enough to do what we need it to. It would be, but the rest of it just decided to break on me. What a shame. What a shame. Yeah, that's a no-go for that at least. Good idea, just bad execution, I think. Is currently the situation. Let's see, what else can we do here? I mean, we could try to just jam it full of aluminum foil like we did a second ago, and it worked that time. And the reason I'm kind of thinking it might work again is actually because this is a similar situation to the previous one, where we would just have to consider gravity currently. So if we can glue this hand on here once again, which we know we can do, we've done it once before, and then afterwards we just basically fill up the resultant like a void similar to the armpit, then I think we would be golden. I guess the question now is, do we want to do that? My fear is that, as we just saw, this is still like fairly unstable. And it makes sense that it would be, considering it's barely held by like one little location. Yeah, this wrist is gonna be hard. We knew that like the whole time, by the way. This isn't exactly news. This isn't exactly news for us. Let me hydrate and think about stuff for a sec. Okay. So at best we can secure it in 2 locations from the looks of it. Let's try to do that. Let's try to do that, and let's also try to do it in a way that the wrist will make sense later. It doesn't just look like it's straight up broken. That's a pretty big deal. Yeah, like this right now doesn't look that great. That would have been good, but it fell off. That one was pretty good, but then I dropped it. Come on now. I just want to see that pose again. I want to see if it was actually good or if it was just a moment of insanity that it looked like kind of promising. Well, that actually looks pretty decent. Okay. Okay. It's just peeling away. Alright, I mean, if, hey, this ever holds, then we have done our due diligence and have the man with a hand, and we'll just need the green stuff a bunch, and, yeah, I'm not looking forward to that part. The green stuff in a hand is going to be hard. Probably the hardest part of this whole model, if I have to guess. But it is what it is. It was our decision that led to this moment. So again, I don't think I get to be too mad about it. I could have just been like, oh, I'll just give him a club. But I didn't want to just give him a club, right? So that's, again, on me. And right now, just trying to smooth out the shouldery parts a little bit. Again, this stuff is going to be very helpful later on when we're green stuffing. Any extra work we do now is basically helpful for future us. Okay. Shoulders are looking a little bit better. We've already kind of repaired the leg. His hand is incidentally glued. And it looks mostly believable, at least from the angle that we need it to be believable from. And yeah, he's gonna hold a fireball. It's gonna be incredible once it's actually done. He's gonna wear a bell because, of course, it is the bell taker stomp, in my defense. Like, that's their whole shtick. So, that's the excuse that I have. I am as God made me, as some would say. Now, I don't think I'm gonna pin the guy to the base just yet. I'm very tempted to, don't get me wrong. I really badly want to, on the one hand. But I don't think we're going to. The reason we're not going to just yet is because we got so much other stuff to do. And I think it's going to be, for the armpits and stuff, it's going to be so much more helpful to not do it. This wrist, man, this is going to be the death of me. Let me actually try to see if there's a way we can get in there and do some goodness. Let me just check one thing. Okay, that's it. Okay, for some reason I thought there was something much more important. It was just a weird notification. We've already kind of nudged it, so this is very unstable and very scared. Come on now, bro. You just had it. Don't do this to me. Is that still, like, good for us? Okay, it looks decent. I'm gonna try the aluminum foil tech once again. I'm gonna let it set. So right now it looks like he's got like a nutsack hanging from his wrist. But trust me, we're gonna cut that away and then we're gonna move the stuff around. So ignore his superfluous nutsack. He needs it for structural purposes. Honestly, this bow is gonna be pretty good once it's all like said and done. Just getting there it's you know taking a hot minute, but I mean, hey, we knew exactly with this guy that he would be the toughest to do. If you remember, we didn't do the pose that I initially set off to do, but we did know pretty much like starting out that this guy would be the most difficult because he had the most cutting involved in terms of appendages. We had to change the position of every single like leg and arm that he has. So it stands to reason that we would have to now pay the piper, if you will. Okay, so we can just cut through the aluminum foil, which is good. And let's see if we can fill her up a little with it. I think that's as good as it gets for us with that. But he no longer has a superfluous nutsack, I'll have you know. And instead, he has a very shiny wrist. Then I'm gonna just coat in super glue to hopefully hold on to this thing. So, you might be like, what's the situation with this man? Let me show you. Let me close my super glue here for the time being. We might not need it for a little while, who knows. So his pose, like his golden angle would kind of be like this. This is kind of what we have in mind, and he's gonna hold that. And I'll move out of the, like move him down a little bit more. So that's kind of how he's going to hold on to this. It's still depending on what exact angle we want to do. But the thing we're going to play with, because right now the one thing you'll notice, he's kind of looking differently. His head is tilted in a different direction than where he's pointing, and that's deliberate right now because I didn't have an option to mess around with the head too much because of the hood that he's wearing. So the compromise we're gonna do, and this was the plan that we had all along, is to put this thing on him in like a Zatoichi, half Zatoichi TF2ism way, where basically what we're trying to do is it's gonna cover the eyes, it's gonna cover the nose, but it's gonna let his teeth show, and because we can kind of play around with the icon on it and pretend that it's a part of his face, we can essentially make it so it looks like he's leaning more to the side. So we can change the profile of the model even more. We can change how he looks even further. And that's kind of what we want. That's legitimately what we want with this particular one. Like, we want him to be as different as humanly possible. And I'm feeling pretty good about him. Feeling very, very good, actually, about him, because we started the day with him still in pieces for the most part, no hand, no structural things, and now he feels real secure in my hand. Like, I don't feel like I could break him shy of, like, just throw him on the ground, basically, which I'm not gonna do. I'm not that angry, and I don't have a reason to be that angry either, to be honest, but yeah, the bell is gonna help us immensely in essentially, like, moving the profile of the model slightly, just a couple of degrees. And I mean, hey, wouldn't you know it, that gets us 3 Mega-gargants at least built to the point that they look like something, like we can work with them. So there's going to be another session that I'm going to have to do sometime on this lad once everything dries. And when it does, we're going to green stuff him. And that's going to cure. And after that, we are going to enter another phase of this particular project where there's a couple little bits and pieces we haven't really done on these lads. And we kind of have to go back. There's still a little rope on the belly area that's missing with all of them over there. And once the green stuff has been done, we'll get a better idea of where like knees and other other pieces of anatomy that just don't make sense. So we'll try to deal with that as time goes on, and then decorate them with some of the shields and other bits that we have access to. I also have a bunch of Mega-gargant sprues, which I think will be very helpful for this, to be honest, and I look forward to using them. But yeah, these lads are gonna look fucking amazing, by the way. So let me give you another rundown over here about the plan of action. So we got Running Man over here. I'll pull him to the side. Unfortunately, I don't have 3 hands, so I don't think I'll be able to do all 3 of them. And I mean, this guy, even with the pin, we kind of have to hold a little bit. So they have already been green stuffed. That's what they're looking like. These are our 2 current gargants that we've kind of worked on in the past. It's been about a month, a little bit less than a month, I think, now that we've been working on these guys, but we made ample progress. And then we got this lad. You'll have to excuse the lack of base, obviously, because we haven't pinned him yet, and due to the green stuff work we need to do, I'm not about to pin him either. Not gonna bother with that. And I mean, he's gonna hold that thing like that, and he's gonna look amazing, I think. Like, he actually looks pretty good, if you'll agree. I like him a lot, actually. Good strong pose. Good strong pose. The thing I like the most is that the legs on all 3 of these guys are different. That was a big part of the project that I wanted to do, for sure. However, because a lot of stuff is drying now, and it is getting late, normally I aim for 4-hour streams, but I don't really just want to fill time for another 40 minutes, you know? I just don't see the point, I'm gonna be honest with you. So I don't think I'm gonna do that. Instead, what I'm gonna do is allow me to just do like something over here. Let me go over here. And set some stuff up real briefly. Alrighty. I mean, hey, like I said, I don't really think it would be very, very nice of me to just spend another 40 minutes for the sake of my sanity, what little I have of it, sitting here and kind of just doing nothing, because I can't really do anything super structural here, and I would really rather do all the bit cleaning and adding on to the existing models once all the green stuff work is done, because I think it's overall going to be a much more enjoyable time, and it's going to allow us to potentially have so much more fun in terms of the personality that we get to add to these models. Because we have a finite number of bits that we can use, obviously, and so therefore it seems to make the most sense to just wait on it a little bit, you know? Seems like a cop-out answer, but that is the situation that I'm in. So I'm thinking what we're gonna do instead is probably just end the stream here. And I mean, hey, I hope you had a good time. I know that I did, and we made plenty of progress. We did a pretty decent news show. I'm feeling pretty good about that one too. We were able to catch up, and we didn't just blitz through stuff for the sake of blitzing through it. I think we did a decent job, if anything. So I'm hoping that you thought so too. And I mean, hey, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you guys. I don't know when is the one problem. Hopefully soon, but this week is very, very full of events for me. I have the open day I still gotta prepare for. I got a bunch of stuff that I gotta do tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and Thursday, so we'll see the rest. Thanks for your time. I mean, hey, thanks friend for tuning in. I hope you were able to make plenty of progress, and I mean, hey, I also hope that you'll get some nice rest, because it's just about bedtime for us Europeans now, especially the wages. So get some rest, and I will see you guys later. Thank you once again for tuning in.
Here is the safest place to be, in the modern home on wheels. Under you is a rigid steel foundation. Steering controls anchored to the frame. Dependable brakes to stop you safely in every emergency. Knee action to keep you steady over the bumps and set you down easy in case of a blowout.
We have just an ordinary day, ordinary traffic, yet any number of these drivers are potential killers. Here's one of them. He doesn't look like a killer, does he? That is why ordinary tires are not enough. That is why ordinary tires are not enough.
Let's get out of here before somebody gets hurt.